the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there and a good evening to you. It is Petrie here with you through until 1 o'clock, and of course at midnight it is the phone in. It is a full hour of just you and me. There are no guests, there's nothing getting in the way, and it's the only hour left on the station where that is a possibility. So I'd love to talk to you, and I know many of you perhaps today after the speech that Nigel Farage gave, maybe you've got things to say, maybe you've got things to talk about with that. So what I want to talk to you about is reform at midnight. I want to know if you believe what Nigel Farage is saying, or do you think it sounds too good to be true? And the reason I'm asking that is because we've heard it all before, haven't we, from every other politician. And every time we decide, no, this one is telling us the truth. This one will actually deliver for the people of this country. This one will actually understands what it's like to be working class, what it's like to be a normal person, somebody who has trouble paying their mortgage, somebody who has an issue when their car breaks down or the washing machine goes. So is Nigel Farage your man? Privately educated and a bond trader, a millionaire. But does he speak for you? I mean, look, we're used to people like Keir Starmer, right, who is also privately educated and a millionaire, and Rishi Sunak, whose wife was richer than the Queen, I think, at the time, and privately educated. So look, we're used to this, but I just wonder what's different about Nigel Farage that you buy, that you believe, that in your core you think he would be the best Prime Minister in the next election, because that's what he's vying for. He's come up with £100 billion worth of giveaways, not charging people tax until they earn, was it 20 grand? That could cost 80 billion of that. And then there's, the two-child cap, that's about 30 billion. And then there's the winter fuel, which is another 1.5 billion. So there's quite a lot. That's what adds up to the 100 billion, if not more. So do you believe him? That's what I want to know. Are you voting reform? Do you think he is the man that will, this time, against all the odds, he will deliver? I'd love to hear why this man has you believing him. Give me a call. I'd love to hear from you. 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at national rate, but we do call you back. And you can text the word talk and your message to 87222. I mean, I suspect a lot of people are thinking, well, we might as well give him a chance because we know what the other shower are like. But let me know if that is your thinking. So that's what we'll be discussing at midnight during this show. Before that, we have the fabulous Kevin Schofield with us. He is going to be going through the newspapers for Wednesday. Van the man, will be here going through some films for us as our film critic. And Bobby Carlton will also be joining us, tech journalist in Saratoga Springs, to go through. We've got some, I mean, if you're watching on YouTube, oh my God, some pictures of robots boxing. And you just go, why? Why are we inventing these things that can punch us in the face? But anyway, we might as well, I suppose. So all of that is coming up. But before that, the war between Russia and Ukraine has reached a very interesting stage. And and this is because of the well, it's many factors actually, but it's reached, I think, a really fascinating stage, a really dangerous stage for the rest of us, and that is that, well, first of all, Putin is hell-bent on destroying as much of Ukraine and taking as much of Ukraine as he possibly can. There is no sign of a ceasefire. There's no sign of a peace deal. We all knew that. We all knew he was paying lip service to that. He was toying with Donald Trump's emotions, right? Now those two appear to have fallen out. Donald Trump referred to Putin as being crazy. I don't know what's happened to him. We've known each other for years, great mates, but he's gone crazy. And then Putin, which this will go down well, told Donald Trump that he was being overly emotional about what they were doing. At the same time, Germany has now said that all shackles are off when it comes to long-range missiles, except that they haven't sent any of those long-range missiles to Ukraine to use. So they have permission to use them, but they haven't really got any. Now, we know that the UK has sent at least one or two. We sent them our missiles, and they went off. And then the ATACMS from America, they've also gone into Russia, not that far. But the Taurus, the German missile, can go 500 kilometres. That is a change, that is a deal breaker, that may change the progress of this war. But what's it all to, and where does it end? Is an escalation a means to an end? Or is an escalation a means to further escalation? Let's talk now to Major General Tim Cross, CBE, retired Army officer. Hello there, how are you?
I'm well, Petrie, thank you very much. Nice to talk to you again.
It's very nice to talk to you. Listen, this feels to me like it is a really stodgy moment here in this war, and maybe being underplayed somewhat.
Yeah, I think I've often said to people, this is in a way, in one sense, like 1916. We're stuck in the middle of something. Large numbers of people are still suffering casualties. I mean, not to the same rate as 1916, but large numbers of people are dying, and yet little progress is being made either way, really. And as you look to the future and think, where is this all going, it's pretty difficult to come up with a clear solution. Now, in the context of a couple of points you made, when we look at Ukraine, like any other battlefield or operational area, you have what's called, first of all, the close battle. It's where the guys, and today increasingly the girls, are fighting each other toe-to-toe in the trenches, the front line, that we see the pictures of on a regular basis. That's the close battle. Behind that front line on both sides is what we call the rear battle. And that rear battle is the deep battle for the opposing sides. So Ukraine has a rear battle to the west of the front line. They also are trying to fight deeply into Russian territory, into their deep battle. And to do that, you need long-range missile systems, artillery, air capabilities, and all the other things that Ukraine has not had a lot of over this last couple of years, 3 years. Russia, of course, has been completely unconstrained in its ability to fight that deep battle. It's been hitting targets in Odessa, deeply into the west of Ukraine. So over the years, we've slowly given Ukraine the ability to fight with equipment that we were refusing to give them early on. And in particular, we were not giving them the ability to fight this deep battle. Now, why is that important? It's because if you can hit deeply behind the Russian lines, you can attack their command and control centers. You can attack their lines of communication, their main supply routes. You can attack their logistic dumps. You can disrupt the movement of their reinforcements. You could break up and disrupt their ability to try and conduct some sort of counteroffensive before it gets to that point where it can fight a close battle. So this is a defining moment in that sense, although it is a continuation of something that's been sort of creeping in over the last 12 months. You've mentioned the main weapon system. Storm Shadow can hit out to about 150 miles, something like that. ATACMS about 190. And as you say, Taurus can strike deeper into that. But the issue is, how many of these systems are they going to have? And how long can we sustain giving them these systems. If we are in the equivalent of 1916, there's another 2, 3, 4 years of this war to go on.
And it seems to be the case, doesn't it? That perhaps what we should have done is not constrained Ukraine in the first place. But then now they've got themselves into a position now where they've become the premier makers of drones. They've got all this new technology. They've managed to develop long-range drones that we're now looking to buy from them. That technology. So if we'd done this sooner, would we be in a different place right now?
I don't think we can say we would be, but certainly we could be. Now, again, you touched in your introduction on why is it then that the West has been so reluctant to give Ukraine the ability to do this? Well, at the beginning, partly because we didn't expect, as I say, the political leadership didn't expect Ukraine to be able to hold out for very long. But the concern has always been, particularly I have to say from the Germans, but from others too, that by giving Ukraine this ability, you risk the chance of escalation. That if Russia is then put on the back foot, it will increase its ability to hit Ukraine. It will begin to use other weapon systems. And of course, the great concern, which we haven't mentioned much over the last few months, actually, but the great concern last year in particular was whether Russia was prepared to use tactical nuclear weapons. So as you ramp up fighting power, as you rank up the capability to fight that deep battle, defend your own rear areas, and fight that close battle, increasingly well, you stand the chance, the danger of escalation. Now, from a military point of view, that is just part of the deal, if you like. You can't expect Ukraine to hold out continuously if you don't give them the means to fight the total battle. And Ukraine have done an incredible job, of course. I mean, their fighting power, which consists of this stuff, this material, the physical component, which we call it, alongside the conceptual component of how do you use this stuff. And as you say, with the way they've developed drones and unmanned systems has shown some, very clever, very quick, fast-moving changes. But the real issue for Ukraine has been their moral component, their ability to continue to fight in these very difficult conditions. So, yes, we could have been in a better place today. I don't think we can say with certainty that we would have been, but the danger would be that shift of the moral component, the shift of the conceptual component may have meant the Russians would have been in a better position than they are today.
But, by not doing that, we are kowtowing to Russia. We've said to Russia, you can use whatever weapons you like, as long as it's not nuclear. You can bomb where you like in Ukraine, and what we're going to do is not give Ukraine the right to do that. In fact, they get really miffed if Ukraine does bomb anywhere in Russia. And you think, how have you got the nerve to even think like that? Because at the moment, what Putin isn't having to do in any great level, which Ukraine is having to do, is fight the psychological war as well. And Tim, you know just how important that is, that psychological warfare, the fear of civilians in a country, which is why America doesn't have any understanding, really, of current war, because it's never been fought on their land.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I mean, what you're talking about there is that moral component piece. It's the willingness to fight and, if necessary, to die for the cause. Now, most of the Russian soldiers, certainly early on, I don't think knew what they were being involved with. And of course, it's always the to coin a phrase, excuse my French, the poor bloody infantry, who are the ones who, are the casualties. And many of them didn't know what they were fighting for. Ukraine's moral component has been extremely powerful. But if you were able to take that fight deeply into Moscow, deeply into other areas of Russia, yes, that psychological piece undoubtedly, would change. That doesn't mean to say that Russia would collapse. I mean, everybody thought that the bombing campaigns of World War II would bring an end to the war in and of themselves. It didn't happen. Nonetheless, the psychological impact of Pearl Harbor, for example, notwithstanding your earlier point, the Americans were hit hard in Pearl Harbor, of course, and that changed the whole dynamic of American thinking and their ability, or their desire, their determination to get involved in World War II. But it is this ability to give Ukraine to fight this total peace is really important. It's one of the things I've used as an analogy is going back to the World War II, the Lend-Lease that the Americans gave to us in 1940, 41, 42, which, by the way, we paid for and have only recently repaid. We shouldn't lose sight of that. But it's rather like Churchill being told by Roosevelt at the time, we're going to give you all this stuff, but you're not allowed to attack Germany with it.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to have a strategic bombing campaign against Germany, which clearly would have been nonsense. And Churchill, I don't think, would have accepted that. But in the same way, we've been holding Ukraine's hands behind its back to a large degree, and this releases them to fight that battle. But there is, I mean, it is important to recognize there is a danger of escalation. And what happens when Russian television starts showing an ATACMS or particularly a Taurus missile hitting a hospital in Moscow or a school, which will happen. I mean, the unintended, as Israel is finding in Gaza, happens all the time in war.
But they've been doing that ad hoc to Ukraine for 3 years.
Sorry, say again?
I was saying that Russia, yes, we will see those images, and nobody wants to see those images, but we have been seeing those images on repeat from Ukraine.
Yes, we have. Yes, we have. Now, and I don't, clearly that is, I do not support Putin in any sense of what they've been doing here. But what you then find, going back to your psychological business, the whole business of psychological warfare and the media operations and the deception operations, et cetera, when these things happen, then, as Ukraine has been saying, Russia is deliberately targeting schools or deliberately targeting hospitals. Actually, 99% of the case, that's not true. These missiles may be pretty accurate, but inevitably stuff happens, things go wrong, and so you get into another battle, which is going to be fought through the media, through programs like yours and the mainstream media, and particularly on things like Twitter and all these other social media sites. So this is going to change. It's not going to change everything. I don't think it will be the determining factor actually in bringing the war to an end. The war is going to have to end by negotiation, and what Trump is finding is that Putin is not interested in that.
No.
And
I was going to say that will only happen when Putin has achieved what he wants to achieve. What do you make, Tim, of these large naval exercises that Russia is carrying out in the Baltics at the moment? I mean, so far, naval and air cover has not really been used by Russia. They haven't really used their air force. And some are suggesting that they're keeping them back in case of any sort of NATO interference, were they to push forward into, let's say, Lithuania.
Yeah. I mean, people, everybody's been concerned about whether this thing will escalate into the Baltics in particular and spread into NATO. My own instinct is Russia is going to be pretty reluctant to actually take on NATO, which is what would happen if they moved into Lithuania or Estonia or Latvia. The maritime war against Ukraine has gone very badly for Russia. Ukraine has dominated that around Crimea and in the Black Sea. I mean, Russia has virtually lost the maritime campaign. Its air power has been used very, as you say, very restrictively, not been particularly successful, which is quite surprising actually. So these maritime and air exercises in the north, around the Baltics, I think are to put, again, using that word, psychological pressure on NATO to say, if you continue to support Ukraine, if you give them these weapon systems, then there is a danger that we're going to do something in that area around the Baltic states. My own view is that is not going to be the case, but, anything is possible. And like any other dictator and authoritarian leader, understanding how Putin is thinking and what he's prepared to do or not to do is pretty difficult. Which is why, although we can all sit back and condemn our leadership and have a go at Trump and Sir Keir Starmer and the other leaders in the West, these things are difficult choices. It's not easy to work your way through this and decide what people like Putin are going to do next. So we have to take those exercises seriously, and remember that defense, good, strong defense, is all about deterrence. It's all about stopping a conflict, which is why we have got to ramp up the GDP that we're allocating to defense as the UK, and the other NATO countries are beginning to do the same. Frankly, I think it's taking too long, and it's not enough in the context of the UK.
Yeah, we should have started years ago. But just quickly as well, what do you make of the relationship between Trump and Putin? Do you think that Donald Trump is beginning to learn that he can't trust Putin, or is this just Donald Trump flip-flopping?
I mean, who the heck knows? It's difficult, isn't it? I just don't, like anybody else, really. I don't really know what to make of Trump. I mean, he says one thing 1 minute, and 5 minutes later says something completely. I mean, Paris in Europe is a good example. But the bottom line, I think what I would respond by saying is that Trump thinks as a businessman, thinks of business deals. He probably genuinely believed that if he had a conversation with Putin, he could come up with some sort of deal, and they could act as sensible businessmen and so forth. I think he's beginning to realize that that is not where Putin is coming from. Putin is not about to give way, particularly because he thinks he's not losing at the end of the day. So he feels no pressure really to come to the negotiating table, and I don't think he's interested in. I don't think he's been interested from the beginning. And Trump, I think, is finally beginning to realise that. Now, what Trump can do about it is another issue altogether. Whether he's really prepared to ramp up sanctions and put more pressure on them militarily, who knows? But he is a difficult man to read. I mean, Putin's bad enough, but in some senses, Trump is even worse. At the end of the day, he's supposed to be a Western Democrat and leading the most important nation in the free world, and it's jolly difficult trying to keep up with him.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Major General Tim Cross, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. Let's do it again soon. Tim Cross, CBE there, retired Army officer. I'll be back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it is Petrie here with you, and at midnight, of course, it is the phone in. It is your chance to talk back, to have your say. So I'd love to hear from you because today we saw Nigel Farage of Reform stand up and deliver a speech on reform and what he was going to do should he become Prime Minister. He believes he will become Prime Minister at the next election. He believes that is possible, and he spent quite a lot of his speech talking about how Keir Starmer had failed. I think many people would agree with that, and how the Tories had failed, and a lot of people will agree with that. But is Nigel Farage the man that you trust to do what he says he's going to do? So we heard a little bit about what he's thinking about, and even he himself said, I might be being a bit optimistic about the numbers, but he's talking about giveaways that could total more than £100 billion a year. And they come in the form of the tax level rise. Before you pay tax, I think it's around about £12,500 at the moment before you start paying tax. He wants to raise that to £20,000 a year, which is brilliant, lovely, fantastic. What a great, wonderful thing to do. But that could cost, depending on how that's calculated and how many people fall into that, it could cost as much as £80 billion a year. He says that he's going to get money back from setting up a kind of Doge Department of Government Efficiency in the UK. That's what he thinks he's going to do. But I have to warn him that Elon Musk really didn't do that well in the United States. First of all, he was going to cut $1 trillion, then he was going to cut 100 billion, and then he was going to cut, I don't know what it turned out to be, somewhere in the region of about 28 billion, which is a decent amount of money, but you are looking at a government spend way bigger than our government spend. So there is waste, and I'm happy for anybody to get rid of waste in government. I think there is far too many MPs for a start. We were promised that would be whittled down and never was, because of course the turkeys aren't going to vote for Christmas, are they? So I think there's a lot of waste in government, but I'm not sure he can find the sort of money that he thinks he can find in that. He's also saying that he's going to get rid of net zero, and that could save between 40, he said 40 billion to begin with, and then 45 billion per year. But his calculations had figured in both public sector and private sector spending on that. So cutting private sector spending is not going to give any money to the exchequer. So the public sector spending is around about 20 billion, 22 billion, something of that ilk. So you've got 100 billion, and he's talking about raking back possibly 22 billion from net zero, from abolishing net zero. So there's a lot here that doesn't add up, but a lot of people are saying, look, it doesn't have to add up right now. It doesn't have to add up really until the election. So he's got a few years. He can, start honing down on those savings. He's also saying that he's going to abolish migrant hotels, but no mention of where those migrants would go instead. He's saying anybody who comes over on a boat will not be allowed in. Well, that is against international law, because amongst those people there will be genuine refugees and asylum seekers, and the only way they can claim asylum at the moment is to come onto British soil. And I've always argued that they should set up hubs around the world where they can go and apply there, which would stop them making that perilous journey. But no, they don't seem to be listening. So do you believe that Nigel Farage is the man to deliver against all the evidence that we've seen from other politicians who overpromise and woefully underdeliver? Is he the man that you trust, that you really trust, to deliver what you need? Does he speak for the working man? Now, Nigel Farage, he's a smoker and a beer drinker and all of those things, but he is also a privately educated millionaire. Does he really understand you? I mean, I would ask the same question about Keir Starmer or even Rishi Sunak. None of them understand us, do they? But why do you trust him? And do you trust him just because you really don't trust the others? It's a case of, Sophie's choice here. What are we going to do? We've tried those two and they failed us. We might as well give this bloke a chance. Is that what you're thinking? Rather than thinking, no, I want Nigel Farage, I want his policies, and I want reform to run this country. Give me a call. I'd love to hear from you on this. 03, it's not a topic that I cover very often. 0344 499 1000, and you can text the word talk and your message to 87222.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, right now you're with Petrie. And coming up at the top of the hour, Kevin Schofield will be with us. He is the political editor at the Huffington Post UK. So he'll be with us to go through the newspapers for Wednesday. Now, though, it is time to head to Saratoga Springs, New York, for our tech journalist, Bobby Carlton. Hello, Bobby. How are you?
Petrie, I'm good. Thank you for having me back on the show.
I'm so thrilled you are. Although the first item that you've got for me, the big question is why? Why are we making metal things that can punch us in the face?
Why not? So it's you know, I mean, we grew up playing games like Rock'em Sock'em Robot. I mean, I had that as a kid, and
with a little lever at the back.
Yeah, the lever.
Yeah. My brothers had that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, my brother and I played that. I think many of my fights with my brother, physical fights, started with Rock'em Sock'em Robots, and would always lead into that. But yeah, I mean, robotics have become a thing. AI has really supercharged how we develop robots, and now we had our very first televised robotic boxing match. This was an actual boxing match between two robots. They used unitary robots to do this. And as you can see in the video, you know, it was kicking, it was punching. They put safety gear on them. I'm not sure why. Probably just to keep the computers safe inside, also for a little showmanship. But it really sort of supercharged the idea of like robots not just being used in the workforce, not just being used for automating processes, you know, helping out lifting heavy things, but we could use it for entertainment value. And this was the first televised robot versus robot fight. Had a live audience as well as people from home watching, and you can see there was a knockdown. And this isn't the first one. There'll be many others just like it. We have shows called BattleBots where people are having these sort of mechanical robots. They're not humanoid robots, battling each other out, and it's very popular. But now humanoid robots are here, and I guarantee you it'll pick up some steam.
And these are not autonomous then? They're not autonomously deciding the moves that they make? They've got operators?
They have operators, but again, there is some AI involved because it is helping keeping the robots standing up. But yes, there's definitely operators behind the robots, and you know, kicking and throwing punches. But again, as robotics evolve and AI evolves, at some point, AI will take over some of those punches and kicks.
I mean, just look, for anybody who can't see this, I really am sorry, because it is extraordinary. The agility on these things, you know, when they get knocked down and they just bounce straight back up again. And they seem to have now figured out a way, because when they first started making robots, humanoid robots, they couldn't get them to walk, because what our bodies go through in order to stand upright and walk is incredibly complex. I mean, thank goodness for most of us, we do it automatically. But they've seemed to have now figured out how to get these robots standing, on one leg, kicking, being able to do all of these things and to be able to get up and to walk. I mean, it's just terrifying to me.
Well, they're using the same technology that you would see a lot of those sort of self-standing vehicles with a gyro built into the middle. But again, AI is also playing a big part of how these robots are standing and getting back up. We're basically using something known as Omniverse to do robotic simulation, to basically train robots what to do, how to get up, how to stand up, what happens if they get pushed over, knocked down. If you go to any robotics conference, you will see people bring out their robots and encourage people to kick them and push them, try to knock them down, and you can't. So obviously, it didn't take long. I'm actually surprised it took this long.
Really?
We were putting humanoid robots in the ring for entertainment value.
And I guess, that, like you said, I mean, we like the entertainment value, so there will be robot Olympics at some point, I would imagine.
Already in the works.
Yeah. and football matches. Oh my God.
Already
But,
the works.
yeah, but why? I mean, look, we've got perfectly good humans who can do that. We don't need robots to do it. And also, you just put a cop's uniform on one of those robots, and that is terrifying. This is coming.
Well, there's that as well. But again, I think on the entertainment side, like with sports, I think it's a natural evolution that we're going to see more sports with robotics. Absolutely, it is great. And again, why I talked about battle bots. I mean, there are teams running different robots. That have their own following. There's a robot called Uppercut run by MIT students. There's Sawblade, Team Sawblade. So it's interesting to see that. And again, humanoid robots in boxing, but humanoid robots in sports will eventually grow into that. And you'll see even autonomous vehicles.
I just think, stop now. This is stupid. We're training things to punch really much harder than we can. It seems like a madness to me. Let's talk about Fortnite, because because of the tariffs that was taken off the shelves at one point.
No, the
wasn't
Fortnite was
tariffs.
actually. It wasn't tariffs. This happened. It was about an argument versus commission. So Apple and Android pulled Fortnite off of their app stores 5 years ago because Epic Games, who owns Fortnite, wanted more of the commissions that were made from in-app purchases. Both Apple and Android, well, Google weren't going to cave, so Epic said we're not going to be on there. We'll be a web-based game only. Android actually settled with Epic Games last year. So finally this year, Apple re-released Fortnite onto iOS. It came back. It's number one right now in the adventure apps category. Fortnite players around the world are excited and thrilled. Mobile games are right now the biggest platform, more than the PS5 or Xbox. Mobile games right now rule. And having Fortnite and in-app purchases is a huge deal. Basically what happened was Epic and Apple agreed that Epic would agree to the 30% commission. However, Epic was allowed to have other ways of buying apps in-app purchases other than through Apple Pay. So
I see. So that's what. Oh, right. That's what it was all about. I mean, obviously, I'm not a game player, but did they need to do that? Because Fortnite was downloaded over 133 million times anyway.
Well, like they needed to do that according to Epic because they wanted that money and they did not want to give up that cash to Apple. And Apple basically said, "This is how we do it." So Epic pulled Fortnite off of the App Store. It's been missing for 5 years, but it came back just this month. If you haven't downloaded the game, it's there now, and players are in it. They're flooded into it. It turns out I'm a pretty good Fortnite player, so I've been enjoying it.
Listen, I want to skip to this story because this has had me laughing. The Donald Trump crypto backers feeling jilted. Now, this was this amazing banquet that they were invited to. The biggest spenders of his crypto are spending hundreds of thousands, if not $1 million, to be on this 200-person list. They were going to get access to the president. All of these things that they paid for. Not quite what they got, is it?
No, I mean, it was going to be the future of how we did business. Like this banquet was going to have like the top crypto buyers, have full access to President Trump. The idea of like how currency was going to move forward. And apparently they went to this dinner. He showed up, did a talk for maybe 20 minutes, left, didn't shake hands. The people who were sitting there said there was a lack of security. The food was okay at best, and felt jilted to the point where they went on social media to complain about this dinner with Trump. And of course, like anything else, you put it on social media, it gets retweeted, reposted. People were commenting, and it just really fueled this existing fire. Wherever you stand on the Trump agenda here, it just really lit a bigger fire on that. And so there's a lack of sympathy for these people who went. Trump dinner.
But I mean, a con man's going to con, right? I mean, this is, they were surprised that they were told they were going to get all this access. They thought that they'd be able to bend Donald Trump's ear in whatever direction they wanted to, and this was the problem. We didn't know. Nobody still knows whether there were terrorist organisations there, or what kind of businesses were there. People walked into this thing wearing masks, so nobody knew who they were. I mean, quite the most extraordinary thing I think I've ever seen a world leader do. But they got conned. They turned up. They spent all this money. I think they got a hat.
They got a hat.
A made in China hat. They got a hat.
Yeah, a lousy hat, made in China, lousy dinner. Did not get to talk to Trump. They did not get to talk about cryptocurrency. As a matter of fact, from what I've been reading, he went on. His 20-minute speech was really just about him.
What a shocker. Was anybody surprised, though? Like you said, no sympathy. Because are you surprised? I mean, this is what he does.
This is what he does. I did not feel bad for any of those individuals. No. And not only did they invest all this money in cryptocurrency, they bought a ticket to this dinner. So it was an expense, and there are people again on social media who literally walk during the event itself on a balcony, going live, saying what a hack this is.
Well, I think I saw him. Didn't he get his car scratched with the word Trump as well? His Ferrari, not Ferrari, but Lamborghini.
Yeah,
yeah, it was not a good night out by all accounts. But like I said, I cannot believe they were the least bit surprised by that, because everybody else could see that.
Who knew?
Who knew that Trump was going to do that? Bobby, it's always a delight to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Bobby Carlton there, tech journalist in Saratoga Springs, New York. Stay where you are. It's movies next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, this is Talk and this is Petrie, and coming up at the top of the hour, Kevin Schofield will be joining us to go through the newspapers. But before that, let's have a look at some movies with Van the Man O'Connor, our film critic. Hello, Van.
Hello, Petrie. How are you doing there?
I'm good. It's good to see you back so soon. I'm very happy with that. Let's have a look at some of these movies. Now, I've actually watched one of these.
Have you actually watched one of these? By any chance, was it Fountain of Youth?
It was, yeah.
Oh, you poor girl. Oh. Right, well, I'm getting ahead of the review, aren't I? Sorry, no.
Yeah, you start and I'll chip in.
Okay, so Fountain of Youth, new movie that's out on Apple TV Plus, dropped this past Friday. It's the new movie directed by Guy Ritchie, would you believe? And effectively plays like Guy Ritchie's version of Indiana Jones.
Yeah, exactly.
Or more specifically, National Treasure. Actually, it's probably closer to National Treasure.
It could be Romancing the Stone as well. I mean, it's a mix of them all together, isn't it, really?
But not quite heavy on the romance, because our leads here are a brother and sister. So unless you're George Lucas, maybe not Romancing the Stone.
No, I'm thinking about the baddie.
Oh, yes, of course. John Krasinski is our indie type. In fact, he's closest, and I say closest to Nicolas Cage in National Treasure. Very fanatical, tunnel vision, opportunistic treasure hunter who has set his sights on tracking down his late father's, holy grail, which was in fact the Fountain of Youth. He sets off in search of the Fountain of Youth, dragging his sister against her will, played by Natalie Portman. She's a museum curator, drags her along for the ride because it turns out that the map to the Fountain of Youth is hidden on the back of six like legendary paintings from I think the 16th century. Stop me if you've heard this before, because this is literally the plot of National Treasure. So he has to nick all the paintings to put the map together so that they can go and find the Fountain of Youth. And he's got a team of a merry band of misfits, and so far so National Treasure. So I've got a clip for you. Enjoy the sounds. Enjoy the sounds of John Krasinski and Natalie Portman in Fountain of Youth.
Watch out! Coming through!
Did you know your brother's linked to a string of high-profile art thefts?
That he did not mention.
Can you at least tell me where he is?
If I knew where he was, you'd be the first to know. He's put me in somewhat awkward position.
Luke! What are you doing?
It's like Dad said, the reward is in the journey.
Not when the journey ends in jail.
Oh, I'm not going to jail.
How do you know that?
Because I've done this. A lot. And it never ends in jail.
Sometimes it ends in jail.
Please.
Yeah, I didn't mind this as long as I was doing something else at the same time.
Yes.
Which I was. I thought visually it was great. I thought there were a lot of nice, the bits where the staircase pops out of nowhere, and
there's some good indie stuff.
There's some good indie stuff in there. Yeah. The whole sort of that, almost the big ball rolling down the corridor, that sort of thing. That was great.
It's trying for that.
It's trying for that, but it was, like you're saying, it was. I thought it was very weak.
It is very weak. There is no stamp whatsoever from Guy Ritchie on this.
No,
this really
none.
Couldn't have been directed by anybody. I won't say it's the worst movie Guy Ritchie's ever made, because Revolver exists, and also that one he did with Madonna when they were a couple. That Swept Away, something like that. It really is a ho-hum boilerplate, like 2.5 to 3 star, very functional, and the emphasis is on the word functional, sort of National Treasure riff. And I get it.
Without the charm. Without
the charm.
Cage.
And I know that there are dozens of aborted scripts for National Treasure sequels out in the world, and I have to believe that this was one of them. I have to believe that this was originally a National Treasure sequel.
Oh, right.
Because I know that Disney bought the website domains for nationaltreasure3and4.com and had plans to make other ones, and then for some reason that seems to confuse even Nicolas Cage, they just never happened. John Krasinski, fine. He's playing a bit more of a goofball than usual, which I quite like for him. Natalie Portman seems incredibly out of her element in this. But I did really enjoy Donald Gleeson, though, as the sort of dying benefactor of the team.
He was great. Yeah. Let's not spoil it, but
No.
I thought
he's very good.
He was very good, actually. Although the twist was fairly obvious right from the first second.
The twist it comes up with, and also its entire third act is, last time I checked, literally how Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade went.
Yeah.
So,
but
like I say, it's streaming, it's free, it's not going to cost anyone anything, and thank God, because that's the only way you'll.
But this was an expensive movie to make. You can see where the money was spent. The money was spent on this.
They spent a ton on this. You can't tell how. It feels like Red Notice with Dwayne Johnson, Ryan Reynolds, and Gal Gadot. That was a made-for-streaming sort of indie riff, and this feels very much like a companion piece. That they really need to stop doing these, but. It's out now. It was a harmless enough diversion of.
That's how I would describe it as well. It'd be great for kids on a Saturday evening. I guess it's fine. What about Lilo and Stitch?
Lilo and Stitch is better for kids on a Saturday evening. I will say that.
Is this the one with Hannah Waddingham in it?
Yes, Hannah Waddingham is in this. She's in 2 movies in cinemas right now because she's in Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, and this. So, have you seen the original Lilo and Stitch?
No.
Of interest. So the 2002 original is pretty much adapted verbatim here. This is yet another Disney live-action copy and paste from the animated one into, full-blooded, red-blooded humans. It's about an alien experiment, 626, an unstoppable killing machine, who also happens to be a really lovely little blue, cute monster who escapes to Earth. He's going to be put down by his alien creators or whatever, escapes to Earth and befriends a little girl, a little Hawaiian girl, Lilo of the title. And she is one of 2 sisters. Their parents have passed away recently. Her teenage sister, Nani, who was played in the original by Tia Carrere, who turns up here as the social worker. They are being inundated with social workers basically telling them, look, we're going to have to take Lilo away from you. This is not a great environment for her. And of course, the introduction of an alien menace into this mix, not the best addition. Doubly so when it turns out he's also being hunted by not only his creator, but an Earth expert as well from the alien, the alien overlords. So I've got a clip for you. It's a very sweet movie. In both versions, it's a very touchy, very sweet movie. But you'll get that very quickly from this clip, in which Lilo meets Stitch, thinking that he is a dog at the pound.
I think.
Looks like some kind of baby bear that come out of the trash.
I like him. Come here, boy.
Yeah, let's put this one back, Lilo.
Come here.
Sweetie. We do have better dogs, like way better.
Not better than him. She can talk. Say hello.
Hello.
Dogs no can talk. Dogs can't talk, Lilo.
He is very cute. He is very cute.
He is. Actually, he's cuter in live action. In the CG version in the live-action movie is weirdly cuter than the animated one because now he has more expressions, a lot more close-ups on kind of thing. They can make him a bit more puppy-like, so he gets to do the Puss in Boots kind of sad eyes thing that he does. But
why didn't they get Andy Serkis to play him? I mean, he plays everything.
There's only one Andy Serkis, and there's so many motion capture roles.
So many of them now.
Look, if it's not Andy Serkis or Doug Jones, it's just one of those things. But yeah, very cute. Very
cute. And
makes some changes.
That's in cinemas now.
That is, in fact, that's in cinemas now.
And of course, it's half term, isn't it? So across the country, I think. So
perfectly timed.
Perfectly timed. Anyone would think it was planned, even. Let's talk about Spider-Man: Brand New Day. Why are we making more and more of these films?
Because I will merrily give Marvel all my money forever to keep making good Spider-Man movies. And I'm not alone. So so Brand New Day is going to be the 4th in the MCU Spider-Man iteration with Tom Holland. They all have like a guest star in these movies. They always have like someone from the MCU play mentor to Spider-Man effectively. So it's Tony Stark in the first one, Nick Fury in the second, Doctor Strange in the third, and it's Hulk for the 4th. So Mark Ruffalo is back. I presume since Peter's going to be in college at this point and Hulk is now smart Professor Hulk, that he might actually be a professor. I could see it that Hulk is the professor in this case. But either way, apparently it's not a small role. It's quite a significant supporting role. This will be Mark Ruffalo's 10th, I believe, appearance in the MCU, if you count the entirety of She-Hulk, I think. But I'm happy. They don't have the rights to use Hulk on his own. So Hulk can only be a supporting player. So the idea of using him for the other character that they can't really use... Why
can't they use him on his own? They can't do a Hulk movie.
They sold the rights to Universal, I believe, in the 90s. So the Ang Lee one and the Edward Norton one were both Universal movies, and as a result, the rights have never reverted back in such a way that they can just make a Hulk movie. I think there is something in the works where they have said that sooner or later they will be able to, but it's very much it's an X-Men equation. It's like what we've had with X-Men for years.
So Mark Ruffalo has signed up to this, has he?
Well, I mean, it's not been officially confirmed, but it's been pretty widely touted for the past couple of days. I wouldn't be shocked because, like I say, every one of these has a sort of guest star, and he'd be a good one to use. Also, I love Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk, especially when he's the new Professor Hulk form, because there is something kind of funny about seeing the Hulk talking and wearing glasses and like a cardigan. That is kind of funny.
You are such a child, aren't you?
I am. I'm a massive kid.
A massive kid. Right. I don't know who this is being made for, but the Michael Jackson biopic called Michael.
Yeah, this thing is doomed. This thing is absolutely doomed. So first of all, they made the movie and then found out that they had to reshoot a bunch of it because they'd included certain legal things in there that they weren't legally allowed to include. Right. That when when Michael settled out of court in the 90s with the two young boys, one of the stipulations of that agreement was that they would never do this in a movie, and they did. So they had to reshoot it. They now have to add 3 weeks, I think it's 3 weeks and a day of reshoots to this. Apparently it's significant reshoots. And this is a film that is already totaling in about 3.5 hours, we're told. So the reshoots are now going to basically form a framing device that they can basically split it into 2 movies and release it as a 2-part thing. Michael Part 1 and Michael Part 2. Although, if you're being really clever about it, call the first one off the wall and call the second one bad. Just saying. Or dangerous. And
that's good.
Right? Do it.
That's good. Do it.
I'm not excited about it, but Michael's own nephew is playing him. That's the weird thing. He's actually A. Jackson playing Michael Jackson.
I wonder if this is going to be a waste of their money. I just don't. I don't know. I mean, look, his music, if you can separate the man from the music, then great. The music is great, but this isn't separating the man from anything. So
no, we do allow Michael Jackson, as a society, we do allow Michael Jackson a certain courtesy that we do not.
Yeah, just because his music was so brilliant, but anything else, I don't think we want to know. Van, thank you. Coming up, the papers.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Petrie, and with me for the next hour is Kevin Schofield, political editor at the Huffington Post UK. Good evening, Kevin.
Hello there, Petrie. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. All the better for seeing your little face, obviously. Listen, before we get into the papers, as political editor of the Huffington Post UK, I know you were absolutely glued to Nigel Farage today. What did you make of his speech there?
Yeah, I was watching it. I mean, obviously it was heavily trailed, so we knew that he was going to announce that he would bring back winter fuel payments, that he would lift the two-child benefit cap. I mean, one thing that struck me, you know, he can criticise his policies and a lot of his views on things, but in terms of a political communicator, there's no doubt he's probably the best of all the party leaders that there is right now. You know, he doesn't read anything off a piece of paper. It all seems pretty effortless to him, and I think he's to be commended for that, to be honest with you. I think Keir Starmer, for instance, reads too much off a piece of paper. It feels like, you know, it's been written for him, and it feels a bit wooden and a bit stilted. And I think, to be honest with you, that's part of Nigel Farage's appeal for a lot of people, is that he actually seems to be comfortable in his own skin. And I think people, you know, like that kind of authenticity, whereas they feel with other politicians that it's all just a bit too stilted and boring, quite frankly. Now,
and let's be honest, they like that about Boris Johnson as well.
Exactly. You know, that's part of the reason, I think, why he cut through. He had that likeability with a lot of the public. They could see themselves having a pint with him in the pub. You know, it's just that type of thing that people, you know, if you're not a massive political animal, a lot of people will judge political leaders and potential prime ministers by that metric. Now, that's the presentational side of things. In terms of the content, I think what struck me is that so far, anyway, we're 4 years out from an election, he's not even pretending that his sums add up right now. I think at one point in it, he just talked about, well, which political party, which government sums have ever added up. So almost, why are you asking me to say how I'm going to be able to afford to do all of these things? I mean, one other big policy that he announced today was if you earn less than £20,000, you don't have to pay any income tax. Now, at the moment, that the tax-free allowance is around about £12,500. So that's an extra £7,500 of tax-free income, which has been, the price tag that's been put on that is anything up to 80 billion pounds. And you think, well, how on earth are you ever going to be able to afford that? But at the moment, you know, people aren't really scrutinising it too closely. I think maybe as we get closer to an election, unless he comes up with, I don't know, what policies to try and pay for these policies, then I think he might be in a little bit of trouble. But at the moment, he can just point to Labour and the Tories and say, well, these guys have had their turn. The country's a mess. Why not try something else? The
other thing, though, is to remember that he was a fan of Liz Truss's budget. That completely blew the economy. He supported that 100%. So maybe he's not the person to be talking about what he would do with an economy. But he is the only voice they've got, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. I mean, it is still, to all intents and purposes, a one-man band. You know, people might have heard of Richard Tice, they've probably heard of Lee Anderson, but in terms of Reform UK, that is, to most people, Nigel Farage is Reform UK. So really, I mean, I've no idea who his Chancellor would be, for instance, if he became Prime Minister. So he is the one who speaks on all these big policy issues, be it the economy, justice, home affairs, foreign policy, everything is Nigel Farage. And you're right, he does have that baggage of having supported the Liz Truss mini budget. He tweeted about it, saying it was the best Conservative, or the first Conservative budget since the 1980s. He probably doesn't like to be reminded of that now. So yeah, I think come election time, Labour will absolutely be hammering him with that one. The Lib Dems today actually described his speech today as Trussonomics on steroids, basically saying it goes even further than Liz Truss ever did. She promised £45 billion of unfunded tax cuts. Well, as I mentioned there a moment ago, that one tax policy has been calculated at potentially costing up to 80 billion. So, that's just of an order of magnitude. It's mind-boggling. So, at the moment, he's in a luxurious position of being able to basically toss out these policies without having to really explain how he's going to pay for them. But eventually he will run out of road as far as that's concerned, and he will have to come up with some sort of plausible explanations as to how he's going to fund these policies.
But I'm going to say this: does he though? Because as you mentioned there, look, everybody's tried the other two main parties. They've both failed, time after time after time. If he just goes with the, look, why not try something different? He doesn't have to cost it, does he? He doesn't have to really. I mean, for the likes of you and me, we all be looking at that and go, well, it's not even costed. But a lot of people vote with their heart, as you said, his personality. He's privately educated, a millionaire, divorced twice, talking about how marriage is a stable family home today. Nobody really cares about what all of that stuff getting in the way. If he just says, look, I'm just different, will that not be enough for him?
Well, there are definite parallels, I think, between the situation with Nigel Farage here and Donald Trump in America.
Well, the speech was very similar, actually.
It was very similar, and a lot of the stuff that Donald Trump came away with, before he first became president, you just thought there's no way America's ever going to elect that guy. The stuff he says is just ridiculous. His policies are insane. But not only did he get elected, he's been re-elected, albeit having lost an election in between. So yeah, there is an element of that, undoubtedly. But what I thought was interesting as well was today, basically as he was speaking, YouGov put out a poll which showed that he, when people were asked, put him head to head with Keir Starmer, Ed Davey, and even Kemi Badenoch, who they would rather be see as Prime Minister, and he came behind all of them.
Yeah.
So I think that's his problem as well, is that he is a very divisive figure. And although Reform at the moment are ahead in the polls, quite comfortably ahead of Labour, miles ahead of the Tories in the polls, I think as we get closer to the election and it becomes maybe a straight choice between Nigel Farage and Keir Starmer, for instance, to be Prime Minister, I think then that's when you might see things narrow, because he, as I say, he's a very divisive figure. A lot of the country, if you were a Remainer back in 2016, you'll never forgive the guy for helping to take us out of the European Union. So, he has got that. He's got a lot of baggage that he carries around with him as well. And as I say, he's a very divisive character. But I take your point, Petrie. He's judged and by a different standard, a bit like Boris Johnson was. He's judged by a different standard than conventional politicians, and maybe he would he'd get the benefit of the doubt as far as the public's concerned when it comes to putting price tags on these various policies.
Yeah, I mean, I think all he's got to do, because up until now, people have been told, look, it's a waste of a vote, voting reform. They haven't got their structure together. They haven't got the members together. They haven't got enough people. He's changed all of that. And the membership of Reform now is huge as well. What he's now saying is, look, we've got those councils, we've got those mayoralships, we've got that by-election. We are a real contender now, so we are no longer a waste of a vote. And he said that today. He said, in fact, the Tories would be a waste of your vote right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the striking lines in his speech was, if you vote Reform, you get Reform, because they can point to all those 670 odd seats that they won in the local elections. They now control 10 councils. They won a couple of mayoralties as well. And you're right, Runcorn and Helsby by-elections. So now when the other parties turn around and say, well, Reform, you vote Reform, that's just a wasted vote because they're never going to get in. Well, that's not going to work now, because clearly they have got in, and, there's more local elections coming up next year. I dare say they'll do pretty well in those. There'll probably be other by-elections between now and then. as well, where they could well put on a pretty good showing. So yeah, there's no doubt they've got the momentum behind them. He has professionalised the party. They do seem like a more slick operation. They seem to have managed to root out a lot of the unsavoury candidates that they'd had in the past as well. So everything in the garden right now looks pretty rosy for Reform. But I think I've said before, we're 4 years out from a general election. Anything can happen between now and then. 4 years ago, you would have thought you were mad if someone said Starmer would have a landslide majority. So who knows where we'll be in 4 years' time. But right now, there's undoubtedly, they've got Labour worried. They've certainly got the Tories worried. The Tories seem to be in a fight for their very survival right now. And, you know, it could well come down to a straight shootout between Reform and Labour come the next election.
Extraordinary. At what point, though, does Reform have to, because of the legal way that it's been formed, it's a company, isn't it? At some point, does it have to cease being a limited company and become something else in order for him to, or does it not?
I think that's all above board now. I think they changed the ownership structure. It's all a little bit complicated, but I seem to remember that the previous setup has now been changed, and it is, to all intents and purposes, a conventional political party. So there's been no suggestion that it's the way that it's organised is any way would prevent it from becoming a government, or, you know, they would have to change things come the general election. You know, they stood at the last election, stood lots and lots of candidates at the last election, only got 5 elected. But, you know, I dare say, whatever happens, come the next election, they'll get many, many, many more elected.
I mean, interesting times. And talking of interesting times, the New York Post, War of the Words, as opposed to worlds, which I think is a great headline, actually. New York Post there, and literally just showing Trump and Putin on the front. Is this a falling out? You know, words have been exchanged. Trump says Putin's gone crazy, and I love the fact that Putin then throws back with Don's being a little bit emotional. Which is so patronising, isn't it? I mean, it's just the most patronising thing you could say, but I can hear Putin saying it. I guess it depends on the 2 o'clock in the morning response on Truth Social that Donald Trump dishes out. But this is probably not good for the rest of us. Mind you, neither is them being friends, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that this has been bubbling away for a few weeks now. You know, for long enough, Trump certainly was giving Putin the benefit of the doubt, to put it mildly. He seemed to be giving Putin a pass and being incredibly hard on Zelensky. Obviously, there was a bust-up in the Oval Office, other things about, you know, calling Zelensky a dictator, all those types of things. And, you know, I say not Putin wants peace. Well, I think even Trump has finally reached a breaking point as far as Vladimir Putin is concerned. And as I say, for the last few weeks, he has been making more critical comments, but obviously it's culminated in this gone crazy. Now, you would never have another US president in the past would ever have used language like this. You know, it's another classic example of Donald Trump just being so unconventional. But there's no doubt that peace, the peace that Donald Trump seemed to think was pretty much a formality. You know, as soon as he would get into the White House, he'd knock heads together, they'd come to a deal, and the war would end. Now, he's realised that that is not on the cards. Zelensky has, I think, bent over backwards to try and agree at least a ceasefire, but clearly Putin is not even interested in that. We've seen the bombardment of Kiev and other parts of Ukraine, if anything, has got more intense in recent weeks. And it's making Trump look foolish. And Donald Trump does not like to look foolish. And I think that's why we're seeing him blow up in the way that he has. But it's certainly not doing any good as far as seeking a peace deal is concerned. I think we're probably further away, unfortunately, from
well, simply because, Kevin, that Putin never wanted a peace deal. He's not interested. I mean, that's the truth of it. Because if he did, he'd just stop shooting, and then Ukraine doesn't have to defend itself anymore, and then the war stops, right? It's really quite simple. He didn't want this to stop. He believes that he's got Ukraine on the ropes. He believes it's only a matter of time before the rest of us get fed up supporting Ukraine, and in that case he just walks through the length of the country. He's got no intention of stopping.
No, you're right. I mean, when he invaded, near enough 3.5 years ago, the plan was to take over the entire country, you know, to have reached Kyiv within 3 days, and, you know, it would be an occupied nation. Clearly it hasn't worked out that way, but the idea that he's going to somehow cut his losses and just walk away with a small, well, relatively small chunk of Ukraine, that's, you know, there's far too much blood has been shed, you know, for a start.
On both sides.
Needs to, on both sides, but he needs to go all the way. You know, he's made no secret of the fact that he sees Ukraine as Russian. It should be part of a greater Russia. So yeah, you're right. He's got absolutely no interest in peace. It's bizarre that it's taken Donald Trump such a long time to also come to that realization
that we all knew from day one.
We all knew right from the very beginning, and Putin has made no secret of it, and he's made no attempt. He's made no even a gesture towards peace. He is not interested in a peace deal. He wants to take over the whole of Ukraine, and that, as I say, that realization seemingly is finally sinking in as far as Trump's concerned.
It'd be very interesting to see how he retaliates to being told that he's a bit emotional. I don't think he's going to like that at all. I'm just saying, because if anybody says to me, you're being emotional, that really makes me angry, just so you know. It makes me really emotional.
It's quite patronising.
It really is patronising. Okay, Kevin, let's take a break. Back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and with me is Kevin Schofield, political editor at the Huffington Post UK. Kevin, let's turn our attention to the Times, and right at the top there, Liverpool parade a suspect was, in inverted commas, a drug driver tailgating ambulance. Now, we haven't heard officially from police. The questions are mounting, though. We know that he was arrested. A 53-year-old white British man was arrested at the scene on suspicion of attempted murder, dangerous driving and driving under the influence of drugs. But we've yet to hear from the police about questioning whether they're still holding him, how long they're holding him for, and all of those things.
Yeah, I think I read somewhere earlier today that they've got the time now to question him until lunchtime tomorrow. But I would imagine that that could be extended if they need to question him further. I mean, it's still difficult to get your head round exactly what happened and why it happened. Now, what we've learned today is that he appears to have gained access to a cordoned off area by effectively tailgating an ambulance. An ambulance was entering the area to deal with a suspected heart attack, and the restrictions were lifted to allow the ambulance through, and this person drove in behind the ambulance. Now, clearly, we need to find out why he did it, and then why he reacted in the way that he did after seeing video footage. It looks as though understandably angry supporters were attacking the car because he was in their area when he shouldn't have been, and he then responded to that, it would appear, by going on this leaving this trail of destruction in his wake. It's absolutely shocking video footage.
Oh, awful.
I advise anyone to try and avoid it if at all possible. But there was a few videos floating around on social media as ever, and it is just it's. You forget the whole reason that the fans were there. It was meant to be a joyous occasion, the first time they'd been able to celebrate in person Liverpool winning the league in 35 years. It was a joyous day. The team had been out on the open top bus. Everyone was enjoying themselves, and then sadly, tragically, it ends in such a horrible manner. Now, thankfully, thus far, it would appear no one was killed in this incident, although, as you would say there, Petrie, dozens of people were injured, some of them seriously, including children. We obviously hope that they make a full recovery. But yeah, early days in this investigation, and there's many more details still to emerge.
Yeah, I guess that we will get a much better idea if and when a charge is made. We'll then be able to know the man's name. We'll be able to know what he's being charged with, because these were suspected crimes. So we'll get a better idea. Yeah, there seems to have been, just why he was driving towards that, going down the road that way when that was towards a shut-off area and crowds and things like that. So I suppose we'll learn a little bit more of that as and when the details come through. The other story is King Charles sending a powerful message to President Trump as he went to the state opening of Parliament in Canada. It's only the second time I think this has ever happened.
Yeah, quite remarkable comments, really. Now, obviously, the context of this is Donald Trump. We're back talking about Donald Trump again. Has repeatedly said that he wanted Canada to become the 51st state of America. And at first, I think we all just wrote that off as another one of Trump's almost jokey, outlandish comments. But it appeared that he was actually serious, and it was certainly taken very seriously in Canada, as you might expect. And it enabled Mark Carney, the Liberal Party leader, to turn around a huge opinion poll deficit against the Conservatives and to win the election. So, Mark Carney, ironically, has got Donald Trump to thank. I think that he is a Prime Minister of Canada. Now, Prince Charles, I keep saying Prince Charles, King Charles, gave this speech today in the Canadian Parliament in which he talked about, a sovereign, free Canada, and you don't have to be a genius to work out the message that he was sending there. It was very much a supporting Canada against Donald Trump message. And, it's worth bearing in mind that the King has also extended and invited Donald Trump for a state visit to this country. I'd love to be a fly in the wall when that meeting takes place, because this is going to make things, I think, a little bit awkward, and they might want to avoid the topic of Canada.
They might want to avoid that. It's funny because Trump does still occasionally mention that fake line in between Canada and America, but Carney has been very calm and quiet so far as to what he's going to do. And I suppose now with the opening of Parliament, he's got his Parliament in order now. He's got his governance in order now. We will start to see some fight back, I think, from Mark Carney.
Yeah, and if you remember when he had a meeting in the Oval Office with with Donald Trump. He had a great line, obviously very pre-prepared line. He talked about how, you know, Trump as a real estate man knows that there are some pieces of real estate which are not for sale
ever.
And he says, during the election campaign, I spoke to the owners of Canada, and I can tell you that Canada is not for sale. And I think that put Trump on notice that there was absolutely no prospect of any deal being done.
Except that Trump went, well, don't never say never. It's like, oh, read the room, mate. It's
Well, yeah, quite. You know, sometimes you've just got to beat a retreat when you know that you've been defeated, although that's maybe not in Trump's nature. But
I don't think it is. No.
But getting back to King Charles's comments, you know, they are pretty political, you know, and we know that he's more political than his mother was when she was queen. You know, there was the odd little comment here and there, but, you know, nothing as overtly political as this, and he's really waded in to the row between America and Canada. And it will be interesting again, will we wake up tomorrow morning to find out that Donald Trump has fired off a message on Truth Social? We wait with bated breath.
We wait with bated breath. But the Canadians, I was seeing some Vox Pops earlier on, the Canadian people seem to be absolutely thrilled with King Charles, not just him being there, but actually the body of what he said as well. They're like, yeah, you know, we really, really needed this. So it'll have increased his popularity in Canada, no doubt. And finally, on the front page of the Times, police safety fears over jail plan. Sir Keir Starmer's plan to release prisoners early could be of net detriment to public safety. I mean, the last lot that were released early, many of them ended up back behind bars.
Yeah, I mean, it is inevitable, isn't it, that is going to happen. And sadly, it's inevitable that someone released early will commit a particularly awful crime. And as sure as night follows day, unfortunately, that is bound to happen. Now, then it will rebound on the government. People will say, well, why was this person allowed to be released early? The government are in a nightmare situation here, really. They've been bequeathed an awful situation as far as the criminal justice system is concerned. Our jails are full to bursting. There are no simple solutions. Even building 3 more prisons, which is what the government have announced they're going to do. I mean, that will obviously ease pressure eventually, but you can't just toss up.
But they'll be filled. They'll be filled within 18 months, they say. So
absolutely,
we're back at square one.
Absolutely, because as Shabana Mahmood, the Justice Secretary, pointed out, you know, prison sentences, court sentences are but on average, much longer now than they were even 20 years ago. So therefore, the jails fill up much more quickly and prisoners are in there for much longer. Now, David Gauke, the former Tory Justice Secretary, he published a report last week on behalf of the government. He looked at, you know, alternatives to prison, which included letting inmates out earlier if they earn the right to an earlier release by taking part in rehabilitation programs, education programs in jail, and trying to avoid prison sentences of less than 12 months in the first place, going for more community-based sanctions, which is all well and good. But at the end of the day, the government's number one priority is keeping the public safe. And if, as a result of these reforms, it leads to these inmates reoffending and committing even worse crimes, and that will obviously become a major political problem for the government. But the Conservatives really aren't in a position to criticise either, because a lot of the reason why we're in this mess is because for 14 years they didn't really do very much to increase prison population.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see how it's going to work out for them. I really can't. Just quickly before we go to the break, Kevin, les Macron et les slap. That was my attempt at French, or their attempt at French. So, yeah, this is the push. It looked like a push rather than a slap that Brigitte Macron did on the aircraft, and everybody's talking about it.
Absolutely. It's extraordinary footage, and the look on Emmanuel Macron's face when he turns and he realises that just at that moment, the doors have been opened, and what is supposed to have been happening literally behind closed doors, has been shown to the world. And he does a sort of wave as if to say, "Oh, everything's fine." It's not what it looks like. But having watched it 2 or 3 times, it doesn't look very playful to me.
No.
The fact that she pushes him in the face as well. It's obviously quite a violent act, really. If you push someone in the face, you're obviously not very happy with them. So he's obviously tried to play it down, as you might imagine, by saying it was playful, it was jokey. I mean, I don't think anyone's buying that.
No, I don't think anyone is. He's just surrounded by these issues at the moment. The whole gay thing, the whole cocaine thing, the whole, his wife having been his teacher, and now some people are suggesting she's a man, and it's all. I expect he just wants people to stop talking about him at any point. Let's take a break, Kevin, and we'll be back in a second.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk. It's Petrie here, and with me is Kevin Schofield. And looking at the Telegraph, Kevin, I love that photograph on the front page there, the look that the King is giving to Mark Carney. It's a really cheeky little, like they've both been caught doing something naughty. And maybe that naughty thing is saying to Donald Trump, Canada is strong and free. So I think maybe they acknowledge that they've poked the bear a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously there would be very strong input from the Canadian government in the speech, if not written entirely, obviously in consultation with the palace. And yeah, you're right, it's a fantastic picture.
It's a wonderful picture.
It's almost like they're thinking, my goodness, I wonder how Donald's going to react to this.
It's a really naughty, cheeky boys look, isn't it? It really is like...
I can't believe I just said that.
Yeah, exactly that. Sadiq Khan, I should say, I can't call him sir, has called for cannabis possession to be decriminalised. Now, that I agree with. But he's saying it's over concerns that drug laws are damaging relations with ethnic communities. I mean, that's a bit of a slap in the face for ethnic communities, isn't it? Just to say, well, it's the ethnic communities that are the druggies. That's what it sounds like to me.
Well, yeah, it reads like that when you read, but actually, when you look down the story, I mean, he's basically saying, and it's true that the data backs this up, that the ethnic minority groups are more likely to be stopped and searched for drugs, even though they are no more likely to be carrying drugs than white people. But they are
the whole of the youth is carrying cannabis. I mean, they don't drink anymore. Exactly. That's what they do. They smoke cannabis.
Yeah, they do. And if you live in London, I dare say other parts of the country as well, you walk down the street, certainly in central London, and there are people smoking
walking
cannabis,
past police officers smoking it. Yeah, I mean,
you just smell it. You know, it's become, part of city life, really.
I agree.
And I dare say, as I say, other parts of the country as well. It's not just in cities, but it's become commonplace. It's not unusual now. Sadiq Khan is obviously in the luxurious position as a mayor of being able to talk about stuff like this over which he has no responsibility whatsoever. So he can just say, well, this is what I think should happen. He's never going to be held accountable for it because he can't change the law. Whereas Keir Starmer, Yvette Cooper, the people who can do something about it, have both said that they're not in favour of this. So it's just another example of mayors are in that great position where they can just, voice an opinion, maybe poke the government of the day a little bit, but not actually have any personal responsibility themselves.
Like the Lib Dems,
this is something that he said before. Sadiq Khan had his own commission into the drug laws, which came up with, which said, that it should be decriminalised. But yeah, it's just not something that any government of any stripe, I don't think, is ever going to It's a shame
because it would take a radical step to do that. The Lib Dems wanted to do that. Decriminalising isn't the same as legalising, and it would only be for possession, not for selling. And I think that we are going to end up having to go in that direction eventually. The HMRC plans for a tax raid on pensioners. Crikey, they'd just leave them alone. I mean, they're these poor pensioners. They're just being attacked left, right and centre because Farage as well refused to say whether he was going to continue with the safety net on pensions, didn't he?
With the triple lock, absolutely, which was actually quite eye-catching when he said it, because we're so used to politicians of all stripes saying, we support the triple lock, even though they will all admit privately that it'll have to go eventually because we literally cannot afford it. It's unsustainable. But right now, no one is willing to basically come out and say it because they know if they do, they will be attacked by their political opponents for betraying pensioners. Kemi Badenoch has sort of hinted at it, and been hammered by Labour for doing so. And the Lib Dems as well have said, they would keep the triple lock. So it was quite noticeable that Nigel Farage wouldn't say that they would. He says, we'll just have to wait till the next election manifesto. I mean, he might well end up turning around and saying, yes, I support it, because as we know, pensioners quite a powerful lobby and they vote as well. So you don't want to annoy them. Now this story here, it's about pension savers. So basically everyone with a private pension pot. HMRC, as we know, the Treasury are looking around any way they can to try and get money to try and balance the books. And this is to do with salary sacrifice systems, which allows people to give up part of their salary to put it into the pensions, and they're not taxed on it. It basically cuts their tax bill as they put money into their pensions. The government see this, the Treasury see this as a bit of a loophole. This is money that they could be getting their hands on, so they're talking about taxing it, basically.
I mean, it is horrific, isn't it, really, that the whole premise of the pension is that you don't pay tax as you save it, but you do pay tax as you collect it. That was the whole point, to get people to save. And if they're saying now that they're going to tax it at this end and still tax it at the other end, then that's double taxation. I mean, the whole point was it's tax-free when you save, and you pay tax on it when you cash it in. But if they're going to now say, because I suspect they're not going to stop the tax at the other end, right, Kevin? They're not going to say, right, well, we won't, if we do it this way, we won't tax you when you take it out of your pension pot. So they've got double bubble on people's money. What's the point in saving?
Well, exactly. You hit the nail right in the head there. That was the whole purpose of it, was to try and encourage people to save in their own pension pots, so that you're less of a burden on the public purse. You're less reliant on the state pension, and you're in a more comfortable position yourself, obviously, as well, once you do retire. So yeah, I just wonder maybe whether this is just another one of these ideas that the Treasury have locked away that they present to every single chancellor, regardless of which party. She said, well, if you're looking for money, try this one. But the politics of it are very difficult, aren't they? As you just
it's horrendous.
Both ends.
And it's going to cost people a lot of money.
Well, they reckon on average about 500 quid a year extra you'll pay tax.
Yes.
That is a lot, yeah, of course it is.
It is a lot. And also, you know, we know that Rachel Reeves has got to find, what does she want, an extra 30 or 40 billion? She took 40 billion last October. She needs to now find another 30 or 40 billion this October. She will be looking for ways that don't attack your income tax or national insurance, because she said she won't do that. So I can imagine this will be quite a popular policy for her.
Absolutely, well, because as I think we've discussed before, they boxed themselves in the election campaign, as you say, by saying they wouldn't increase income tax, VAT, or national insurance. So those are the big ticket taxes. So if you're not able to raise them without breaking your election pledge, then you're having to find the money elsewhere. And you know, we were told at the last budget, as you say, they raised £40 billion. That was a once in a parliament budget. You know, that was to balance the books, fill the black hole. Well, if come the next budget in October, if she's then just doing exactly the same again, raising roughly the same amount of money, then people can turn and say, well, hang on a minute, I thought you were
never going to do that again. Yeah, exactly. But then, you know what, Kevin, she'll just say, well, times have changed, we've got to spend more on defence, Russia, yada yada, Trump, tariffs, rah-la-da-da, we didn't know this was going to happen, we didn't know that was going to happen. I made a promise on the basis that nothing changed, everything's changed, and here we are. I can just... You know, that speech is already written.
And the one person who'll benefit from that is Nigel Farage, because again, he'll be able to turn around and say, the Tories mucked it up, Labour are mucking it up.
Yeah. Give me a chance.
Give reform a go,
yeah. Well, talking of Farage, that's on the front page of the Eye. Farage policies would risk Truss's mini-budget style market chaos. Economists warn, again, it's too early, really, before the next election to consider that as a topic, really, at this point. The Independent questions for police over the car inside the fan parade roadblock. There's certainly a lot of questions to answer there. And The Guardian goes with a different front page. Ministers in standoff with Reeves over planned public service cuts. It's going to be a difficult time for her, right?
Very difficult indeed, because and as well as, you know, potentially having to put up taxes, spending cuts are coming for lots of departments. I mean, basically everyone apart from the NHS, I think, is probably looking at cuts in some shape or form, because especially now they're going to U-turn on winter fuel. We know that there's some sort of U-turn coming on the two-child benefit cap. So taken together, that's about an extra £5 billion a year that Rachel Reeves has got to find from somewhere. That's on top of the already tight fiscal situation that she found herself in. So you can understand why individual secretaries of state are very unhappy at the prospect of more departmental cuts to their budgets, which will mean they won't be able to provide the same level of public services that they would like to do. And again, politically, it's very difficult for Labour, because clearly one of the reasons that people voted them in was because they talked about change, and they thought that public services had been underinvested in, that they were a mess, nothing works anymore under the Tories, and lo and behold, in come Labour, and now they're cutting as well. And that's bound to have an impact on frontline services. So, very, very difficult times ahead for Rachel Reeves, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot of people speculating as to whether she'll hold on to her position after October. Kevin, we've got to take a break, but back in a sec.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you, and with me is Kevin Schofield, political editor at the Huffington Post UK, and we're going through Wednesday's newspapers. Kevin, the Daily Mail, again, parade driver, in inverted commas, high on drugs, another wonderful photograph of King Charles, thoroughly enjoying himself in Canada. The Mirror, again, the large part of the paper is about, is saying that he's been arrested over attempted murder and, again, inverted comma, drivers on drugs. And we know that when it's in inverted commas, it means it's not true yet. But also at the top of the Mirror, the new Harry Potter cast has been chosen. Are you excited?
You know what? I'm very excited about that, Petrie, because I'm currently going through the books with our youngest daughter. So I've been reading them to her for, well, it feels like a very long time, but it must be at least a year and a half, maybe 2 years. We're on the fifth one, the Half-Blood Prince, whatever one that is. So we're halfway through that one. I read a bit of it. It's about a chapter a night, really, to her. So yeah, very excited, and she's very excited about this series coming. So as I understand it, they're not remaking the films, but it's like a TV.
Yeah, it's a TV series of it. Yeah, they're not films. I think it's is it Disney? Anyway, I can't remember the people who were making it, but yeah, they've got 3 new lead cast members. I mean, that has got to be the job, hasn't it? If you're a kid, getting that job.
I mean, yeah, it's great. I think it was something like 30,000 kids were auditioned, and they've chosen these 3, which obviously I'm sure they're absolutely thrilled to bits. But their lives are never going to be the same again. You know,
no, and also the tragedy is, of course, they will always be compared to the original cast members, I'm guessing. But I remember Daniel Radcliffe, Harry Potter himself, was at the theatre with his parents, and he'd just been in, I think it's something like Tenko or a film like that, a very small part as a child. And the director of the first Harry Potter film was also there at the theatre and just went, that's my Harry. Just spotted him just sitting there with his parents in the theatre. So that's how he was chosen. Remarkable. But yeah, these 3, they look very cute. They look very similar to the original lot, actually. So let me give them their names. Arabella Stanton as Hermione, Dominic McLaughlin as Harry, and Alistair Stout as Ron. I bet he is thrilled he has got ginger hair, probably for the first time in his childhood. Because I know that
finally come up trumps for him, yeah.
Ginger
finally paid off.
He's finally paid off. He's like, yes, finally. And good luck to all 3 of them. They look very cute, and they've got a real journey ahead of them. Very, very exciting. The Financial Times, again, showing the King and Mark Carney, and the King up on a big sort of throne-like thing, and Carney sitting respectfully on a lower seat, which I thought was interesting, because I'm not sure Donald Trump would have done that. I think it would have been the other way around if it had been Donald Trump. Yeah, just a lot of other financial stories. Rising fiscal tension forces the Treasury shift into shorter-term borrowing. I shall read that if I can't sleep later.
Basically means they don't have enough money, I think.
Yeah, basically, I think that's what they mean. But I'll definitely read that when I'm trying to nod off a little bit later on. The Metro parade suspect in drug driving arrest. That's the Metro. The Daily Express. Liverpool car attacker was, they're saying, high on drugs. At the top of the Express, King warns Canada faces a critical moment, and flabbergasted Rod's honour for lifetime achievement.
Yeah,
I love a bit of Rod Stewart, I have to be honest.
What did you say there? You're not a fan?
I know. I love a bit of Rod Stewart.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
absolutely love him. Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's great. He's great, and I don't say that just because he's a fellow Celtic fan, but he's so maybe a little bit biased, but no, I mean, what a remarkable career he's had, and I'm reliably informed by colleagues of yours, a very nice guy as well. He comes into the studio, I think, to do some stuff for talkSPORT occasionally, and has lots of time, I'm told, for everyone in the office. Poses for pictures, chats away to people. So he just seems like a very down-to-earth, multi-millionaire rock star.
Yeah. Well, he's never been in while I've been in, because I think he'd be running for the for the lift. Rod, come here. No, my childhood, I mean, my youth was all, Rod Stewart songs and all of that with my best mate. I remember it very, very well.
Faces.
He does need to be honoured, and his wife also seems to be really actually down to earth, doesn't she? She's a special constable.
I was just going to say, is she still doing that?
Apparently
I think she maybe is. I mean, and they've been together. Obviously, there's a big age gap.
Yeah.
But they've been together for a very, very long time.
Yeah. No, he's great.
And he just be enjoying, all the trappings of his mega successful career, and good luck to him.
Good luck to him. And he also fills in potholes, doesn't he, as well? I think that is something else that Rod Stewart is quite...
He does, correct. What a legend.
What a ledge. I mean,
he
honestly.
also supports Celtic. I'm not sure if I mentioned that.
Yeah, you might have done. Yeah, you might have mentioned that. The Daily Star, again, looking at the new Harry Potter cast, again, looking at the situation in Liverpool, and there's some stories that I'd love to know what they actually were about. Grin and bore it. It looks interesting, doesn't it?
Yeah, something about a pig, but
a boar.
That's as much as you can tell, really.
It's hairy, so mind you, all pigs are hairy, I suppose. And Top Gun Takeoff. No idea what
again something to do with planes.
Yeah, I don't know. So that's it really. Most of the front pages are looking at the situation in Liverpool, and as you say, Kevin, they've got the right to continue questioning this man until to Wednesday lunchtime. We'll see if they extend that or they come forward with a charge. Have you got anything that you want to share? Any little story?
Yeah, well, so your excellent colleague Gabriella flagged up a story. Now this is one that actually I can completely relate to. It's a pretty remarkable story, which potentially has huge repercussions. So this is a woman by the name of Guyane Potter, who is a voiceover artist.
Yeah.
You'll have heard her voice. Obviously, don't know who she is, but you'll have heard her voice on many, many things. Now, one of the things that her voice is being used in currently is on ScotRail, which is the Scottish railway network. It's the voice that tells you, the next stop is that type of thing. Now, it turns out that it is an AI version of her voice. Basically, her voice was sold from a voiceover that she did for a company overseas. They sold her voice, and an AI version of it was then created and bought by ScotRail to use on their trains. Now, she is Scottish herself, so she can ride on these trains. It's her voice, and yet she never consented to it. She never recorded anything for it. It was just produced using AI. She didn't consent to it. She's not making any money from it. And she says she feels devastated, furious, and violated. And you can absolutely understand why that is. She said her voice is her job.
Exactly.
So clearly, if suddenly her voice can just be manipulated by AI to say anything, then obviously that puts her out of work.
Well, it puts us all out of work, doesn't it?
Anything.
Yeah, it puts us all out of work eventually, because all they need is a few sentences, and you and I've got more than that out there on the in the ether, and they can copy our voices. So if I hear Kevin Schofield selling me biscuits on the television,
No, that was me.
Oh, that was you. All right.
But no, there was one that they did. Michael Parkinson. They brought him back from the dead.
Oh yeah, no,
it's AI Michael Parkinson.
A whole program. Yeah, a whole program. Yeah. Kevin, thank you. Lovely to see you as ever. Kevin Schofield there, political editor at the Huffington Post UK. Right, coming up, it's just you and me, and Farage makes three, because we're talking about reform. And Nigel Farage today giving his big speech to a room full of journalists, talking about his policies going forward, what reform might look like, and persuading you that really they are a legitimate party now, that a vote for them would not be a wasted vote. They've proved that in these council elections. So I want to know if you believe what Nigel Farage was saying, or whether you think it's all too good to be true, or whether it indeed even matters, because the last two parties have let us down so badly. I'll see you in a minute.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, it is Petrie here, and I'm with you for the next hour, and there is nothing else, there's nobody else, it's just you and me. So this is your phone-in hour, and this is your chance to talk back. No guests, nothing. So I want to hear from you. I want to know what it is about Nigel Farage that you trust more than other politicians. I mean, let's face it, all politicians have lied to us. They've all lied to us. What makes you think that Farage is any different from the others? I mean, if you've been listening to me ever, you'll know I'm a fan of none of them. I mean, I'm a fan of none of them. It is never party political with me, because I think they're all rubbish. But if you are a fan of Nigel Farage, what is it about him that you think you can trust where you haven't trusted other politicians before? Maybe you haven't voted for a long time, but you're planning to vote reform. Or is it simply a case, and I suspect that this is possibly it. Is it simply a case that we've tried the other two parties over and over again, and what does they say about madness? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So maybe you've just reached a point where you think, why not? You know, in a sense, what have we got to lose? You know, give the man a chance. I really am interested in this because I think he's got the same charisma, the same ability to talk as Boris Johnson did. I mean, look at the red wall that Boris Johnson turned blue because there was something fundamentally, I suppose, likable about Boris Johnson. He was the non-politician politician in the same way that Nigel Farage is. That they have a language skill and an ability to connect with people. Both of them privately educated, posh boys. Both of them extremely rich. But they both had the ability to talk to the public in a way that nobody else has. Keir Starmer can't. I mean, blimey, fall asleep, wouldn't you? He gives the word vanilla a bad name. But and then Rishi Sunak and all the other hundreds of prime ministers we had under the Tories. So what is it about this rich, posh guy that you trust more than the rich, posh guy that's in power at the moment? What is it about Nigel Farage? Give me a call on that, 0344 499 1000. You can message me as well, 87222. If you put the word talk on front, it comes through to the studio. But that I'm interested in. And do you believe him? Why do you... Well, I don't believe any of them, but why do you believe him or believe in him? He gave a speech today about where they're going to go policy-wise. If you didn't hear it, here's a shortish clip of what he said today.
If we win the next election, we will scrap net zero, something that is costing the Exchequer an extraordinary £40 billion plus every year. There will be no more asylum hotels or houses of multiple occupancy. People who come here illegally across the channel or on the back of lorries will not be allowed to stay. We will scrap the DEI agenda, which is costing the taxpayer up to £7 billion a year throughout the public sector.
He went on to say that he was going to change the tax level at which we start paying tax from £12,500 as it currently stands to £20,000 a year before you start paying tax. Again, extremely popular. I mean, everybody's going to love that, right? Everybody. Also, that he wanted to lift the two-child benefit cap, not because he's a fan of people being on benefits, he said, but because he believed in the family. He's going to give tax breaks to married couples because he believes in marriage, twice divorced. But he does believe in marriage and the stable family and all of that. So he's full of policies and promises and things like that. But combined, just the ones that he mentioned today will cost around £100 billion a year. And that's a lot of money, right? I mean, remember the fuss made about a 20 billion black hole. I mean, this is a 100 billion black hole. So he's telling you these things because this is what he would like to do. But isn't that what all politicians say? And then the truth hits. And chucking thousands of immigrants out of hotels doesn't explain what you're going to do with them after that. Now, he says he's going to chuck them all out, but they can't be chucked out without due process. So there is a process to that, and they certainly can't just round them up on coaches and send them back to their home countries if there's a war there or there's a danger of them being killed when they get back. So none of it is as simple as it sounds, right? So, but there's something about him that either you believe or you want to believe, and that's what I'm sort of trying to figure out here. Well, responding to some of the wish list that Nigel Farage came up to today, the Shadow Secretary, Chris Philip, MP, had this to say.
Nigel Farage's promises add up to over £100 billion. £100 billion, that is Liz Truss times 2.5. And he has not the first idea how he's going to pay for any of these promises. So he stands there on these stages and at rallies, throwing out all these promises. I'm going to spend extra money on this, I'm going to cut that tax, all these promises, well over £100 billion. You know, Nigel Farage has never been in government, hasn't had to explain a record, and he is simply making promises, like attractive sounding promises. I'm going to cut all these taxes, I'm going to spend all this extra money. He's making those promises without having any idea how to deliver them. Now, that sounds superficially attractive. I mean, it's called populism. It sounds superficially attractive, but when it gets properly scrutinised and when people actually have to make a serious decision about who's going to run the country in 3 or 4 years' time, then I think people will appreciate.
But they've seen what you guys. But they've seen what you guys
make
did.
Promises which can't be funded.
So there you go, Peter Cardwell's show earlier on today. Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philip there, saying pretty much what I just said. But I think that what Peter was coming in to say, which is again what I've just said, is they've seen the hash you made of it. They've seen the hash the Labour Party's made of it. What, you know, why not give Farage a go? And that really should be his campaign slogan. He doesn't need any more than that, in my view. He doesn't need any more than give this guy a go, right? But I'd love to hear from you. Sam has said, Kia is semolina. Oh, God, I hate semolina. Whereas Nigel is like bangers and mash. And that's from Sam in Lancashire. Thank you, Sam. That's made me laugh. And Kaz just simply says, I think it's about time we have someone different. It's refreshing for politics. And that's kind of what I think. Either you trust him, you believe him, or you want to. I'm just trying to get a measure of which that is. Because there is overwhelming support for reform. It would be daft not to recognise that, right? Let me go. Who do you want me to go to first? Andrew? Or I'll just go to Andrew. Andrew, who's in Bristol. Good morning, Andrew.
Yeah, very good morning to you, Petrie.
Hi.
Thanks for taking the call. Interesting, you talk about Nigel Farage. The one thing that he's done that the majority of people in this country wanted him to do was get us out of the EU. Now, I know that we haven't really escaped from the EU's clutches, and whilst Starmer's still in power, we probably won't. But at least he achieved that, and I think that's why a lot of people tend to go for him. The other thing, of course, is that he is different from the other two parties. He says what he's going to do. I mean, okay, a lot of these things haven't been costly yet, but let's face it, it's 4 years nearly to the next election.
I can't imagine what's going to I can't imagine what's going to change in 4 years that will give Nigel Farage £100 million worth of costing. And it's interesting you say he says what he's going to do. They all say what they're going to do, but do they all deliver?
Yeah, I absolutely agree 100%. I mean, politicians are an entity unto themselves, and
I don't know how they get away with it, frankly. I think a manifesto should be a contract. That's what I think.
I agree with that too, but let's face it, the ones we've got now have lied to the British public openly, and so often that people aren't going to vote for them again. Surely not. I mean, whoever decides they're going to vote for Labour at the next election needs their head examining.
Yeah, but what about the Tories? Are pretty much. I mean, they've had 200 years. We've had 200 years of a Tory party. I'm not sure it's going to last another 10. I just think that the Tory party's in an absolute disaster area of its own making, and I don't know how it's going to regroup. I mean, in some polls, it's behind the Lib Dems.
Well, the Tory party is a sitting duck, basically, and I don't know. Everybody is saying that Kemi Badenoch should step down and let Generic get in.
Generic, yeah.
But these people are all the same. They're all working for the same end, basically. I won't go into details because that would be a whole new discussion. But Starmer's working for the WEF and the globalists.
In your view, I mean, you can't state that as an empirical fact.
Or maybe not.
But you can't. But look, if that's your view, though, I mean, that is your view, and that will alter the way you think about somebody. But it's just fascinating to me. You know, Nigel Farage made an absolute fortune on Brexit. He made millions on shorting the pound. He did all of these things, and a lot of people though still go, no, but we trust Nigel, and I don't know why you would trust him any more than you trust Keir Starmer or Kemi Badenoch.
I'm like you. I don't trust any politician in the long run.
I think they're all in it for themselves. They're all in it either for ego, aggrandizement, or money.
Well, I have to say I agree with a lot of what you're saying there. But the other thing, of course, is you've got to put yourself in their position. Would you do the same thing as they're doing? Would you work for your own ends rather than for anyone else?
Yeah, but I'd be honest about it. I've already said that if I was a politician, I'd be utterly corrupt. But I would say, I'd be like Donald Trump. I'd just openly just go, oh, I've got a meme coin, buy it. I'm corrupt, just buy it. So in one regard, you could trust me more than any of them because I'd be open about it.
I think the one thing about Nigel Farage is that he's somebody different. He may be another politician who we shouldn't trust shouldn't touch with a barge pole. But by the same token, the people are going to look and say, well, we can't get any worse than we are at the moment. Let's give him the opportunity to do what his mouth says, and we'll judge him on his results.
So 5 years is a long time. I mean, again, if you look across the pond to America, they thought, well, how bad could it get? And he's a completely different president to the one he was, in 2016. And a lot of people are going, oh my God, it's terrible now. What are we doing?
Well, I know your views on Donald Trump, and I follow them to a degree. I mean, Donald Trump is as much part of the deep state as Biden was.
Oh, they all are. That's what I'm saying. But that's actually the point that I'm making, is the fact that, people thought, well, he's different. He's not. He's going to drain the swamp. He's different. He's going to do all of these things, and actually, they turn out to all be the blooming same.
Well, he was going to drain the swamp last time, and he never did.
No.
Which should have been a warning sign to anybody who thinks he's going to be any different from any other president.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it, the Americans' last president of any note was Kennedy.
Obama.
And, it's 300 million people in America, and the two that it came down to were the laughing jackass and him.
Honestly, you wouldn't. I think that America will end up changing its entire voting system, its whole structure. It will break down into federal states like Germany. That's my prediction for the United States of America, the not so United States of America. But look, many people drawing the parallel between Trump and Farage. I mean, his speech today was straight out of Trump's playbook. He was even talking about Doge and, all of these things. So he's definitely taken his lead from Donald Trump.
Well, let's face it, they're great friends, aren't they? So
I don't think anybody's friends with. I don't think anybody's great friends with Donald Trump. I think he uses people, but they were. They did get on, and then they didn't get on, and now I think they get on again. But I'm not sure where they are with that. Andrew, lovely to speak to you. Thank you so much for calling in. Do you know what? I'm going to take a quick break, Tristan. I'm sorry. I will be with you in just a moment. I've just got to take a break.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here until 1 o'clock, and this is your phone-in. And we're talking about Nigel Farage and reform. It's not a topic that I do often, but after Nigel Farage's speech today, or his press conference today, talking about his policies, I thought, why not? And I want to know why it is that you trust him, why it is that you think he gets it. Because I tell you what's interesting about that is the way that Boris Johnson took down the Red Wall. There was a, posh guy who, doing all of that and everything, but he was funny and people could imagine going down the pub with him, and so a lot of Labour voters voted for Conservative for the first time in their lives because they thought that the different guy was going to deliver something different. And what did he do? None of it. He delivered exactly the same, and he let you down, which is why those red walls went back up in the last election. So you trusted Boris because you thought he's different, he's going to do something different, he's going to be different, I like him, he's funny. And now we have the pretender to the throne, Nigel Farage, who you dismiss at your peril. I mean, the man is incredibly smart. And you believe he's now speaking your language. He's great at being an orator in the way that Keir Starmer just did entirely the opposite, right? So Nigel Farage gets it, you think. But he's also a posh, rich boy, privately educated, but because he smokes fags and you can have a pint with him, he's really jolly. All of those things that you thought you saw in Boris Johnson, and you believed in Boris Johnson, and you thought he was going to be different, and now you believe the same of Nigel Farage, and I'm worried you're going to be disappointed because I think they're all pants. Andrea says, you asked what it is about Nigel Farage. The answer is he gets it. He understands how the people of the UK feel. I'll get back to that in a minute. After being let down time and time again by the pathetic previous and present governments, we need a change, and I believe we have to give him and reform a chance because it can't get any worse. Great show. Thank you. Listen, Andrea, it can always get worse. So never say that. It's like going around the M25 and going, oh, traffic's good. No, don't do that. But also, you say he gets it, he understands it. He says he does. He hasn't worried about a mortgage payment or paying his electricity and gas bill for ever, right? You say he gets it. What he is clever at doing is tapping in to the zeitgeist. He taps in to the loudest voices, if you like. He taps into that and he says he gets it. Does he get it, though? Does he really? Private school never went anywhere near the comprehensive system that your children probably had to, that I went through, that most of us went through, the failing education system, the failing NHS. I don't know, he's probably got I don't know, I shouldn't really say that because I don't know, but, you know, does he get it? Or does he just use the right language to convince you that he does? Because everybody thought that Keir Starmer got it. Or Labour gets it. Not Keir Starmer. Labour gets it. They get it. They understand what it's like. They are there, obviously, for the working man and woman. And do you remember what we went through? What is a working person? They didn't even know. They didn't even, like, the party of working people didn't even know how to describe what a working person was. Not that long ago. So they convinced us that they were for the working people. They got it. They understood it. Huh? Did they? No, clearly not, because they're not benefiting us right now. So I just wonder, is it just a case of, well, who else are we going to vote for? The other two are rubbish. We might as well try this guy who's not been tried. I don't know. Maybe that is what you're thinking. Rather than you genuinely really believe that this one man is definitely going to deliver for you. Because we all think that when we vote, right? I guess. 0344 499 1000. Let's go to Tristan. Morning, Tristan.
Morning, Petrie. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Not too bad, thank you.
Good. What do you think of Farage?
Well, the thing is, you know, I know what is regards to how you described him. I mean, I don't really think about that, to be honest with you. What I think about what is the policy that is making a huge difference. And as I said to your researcher, the thing that's making the big difference to this country, to this economy, is net zero. I work in energy. I've worked in energy for a number of years. I see different compliance regulations, and so many things have come into fruition and changed, and more so in the past year since Labour came in than they ever have before. The other thing is listening to Keir Starmer. I mean, it started last year with him stopping the winter fuel allowance, and then his pathological lying. He can't say anything without lying. I don't know why he even talks, because I've tuned out. I've tuned out for the Conservatives. I've tuned out of Labour. But reform, they keep pushing, saying they're going to scrap net zero. Now, the two things in my eyes, what they need to do, scrap net zero, lift the regulation, and it will make a huge difference, because that is what is crippling our economy, is net zero, because it has so many different strands left to it. One of my friends lost his job in March. He worked in Luton, you know, doing on Luton vans, and you know that was because of net zero. My ex-partner's just brought an electric car. You know, £50,000 for an electric car. It's going to cost maybe £500 a month. You know, I mean, it's crazy. You know,
listen. I would agree with you. I do agree with the goal of net zero, but to set it in a few years' time is madness. It should be 100 years' time that we aim for that. But because the idea that you have to get rid of your gas boiler and put in a heat pump, a lot of places that can't support a heat pump. The idea that we're all going to have electric cars, which we can't afford. All of those things I completely agree with, and I have no problem with extending the net zero goal. I think it should still be a goal, but I think that we've got to make that 50 years, 100 years that we aim to be there, and that's probably about the right time frame, to be fair.
Well, China have over 1,300 coal power stations. We don't have anything like that. They keep making solar panels and wind turbines and air source heat pumps and everything. And then you've got people that come on your station, for example, and they go on about us developing solar panels. It's like, hello, you won't allow us to have anything to do with any fossil fuels here. So we can't do that. That's never going to happen.
We have to develop them. They have to be developed in China. I mean, exactly. China is also turning to renewables, and they're working very, very quickly and very, very fast and building lots of. They are. But again, we're looking 50 years away, right, to get the biggest economies, and we should all match up with that rather than try to be this tiny island that says we're going to be zero by Wednesday. It's like it's pointless, and I totally agree with that. I do think we need net zero has to be the goal. It has to be the goal, but the speed of it is nonsense. Yeah,
there has to be some sort of contingency plan with other countries, not the UK does it and everyone else will suddenly follow it. No. I don't think so.
It's nonsense. We know that's nonsense. I mean, I don't want to be like Trump, who goes, no, we're going to ignore climate change. That doesn't exist. That's rubbish. That's nonsense. I want us to acknowledge that, but to say, look, we've got to have a longer lead time on this. This is pathetic. This is never going to happen. And the money that's being wasted on it and trying to convince us, it is too fast and it's not going to work. So I'm with you on that. But I would hate him just to say, right, we're scrapping it and we're going to ignore it now. And we're going to start, burning coal again, and we're going to start doing that again. I wouldn't support that.
No, the other thing is as well is Keir Starmer used to bang on about, everything's costed. Everything's costed. It's like, all right, okay. And then he comes into power. Oh, no, it's not costed at all.
There's a 20 billion black hole. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was.
I agree. I don't trust any of them. No. I mean, anybody who listens to me, they go, oh, you're a Labour supporter, or you're a Tory. I literally am not. Never voted Labour in my life.
I wouldn't never vote Labour in my life.
But people think those are my people guess what they think my politics are. In truth, I hate them all. That's the truth. I don't. I've been in this game way too long. I've interviewed far too many of them. I've seen far too many cycles of political ruin, and I don't trust any of them.
Well, I only became interested into politics, like 5-6 years ago, as I said, when Theresa May did sign over for net zero. Then I sort of stood up and was like, hang on a minute.
Because you know this stuff, right?
Then I found out the meeting was 60 minutes long. I'm like, what? You've just signed us into net zero, and then you've had a meeting for, 60 minutes? As I said to you when we discussed the situation with the speed limits last week, there was no common sense or logic.
No.
And the thing is reform. Yes, they, as you said, politicians, you can believe them, not believe them, and everything like that. But they are saying certain things that I do absolutely agree with. But the other thing is as well, on top of net zero, they nothing can be done unless they gut the civil service. Because at the end of the day, when Conservatives were in control, they tried to implement things, and then it was stopped because of. I remember some of the civil servants says, "I felt I was bullied," or "I didn't like that. I didn't like that law, so I didn't want." It's like, well, hang on a minute. At the end of the day, if I go to my boss saying I don't want to do that, he'd be like, "Well, okay, Tristan, if you don't want to do that, then there's the door. Off you go.
Yeah, this isn't the job for you. What's interesting, though, is that Labour are discussing kicking a lot of them out of London. I think that they will I think a lot of them will quit because they you know, a lot of them want to come into London. They get the London waiting, even if they're working at home, which is disgusting. It's a total theft. They do want to get rid of the expensive offices in London and move them out to, I guess, places like High Wycombe or Milton Keynes or wherever, or Bedford maybe. That'd be nice for you, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
But also to place them around the country a little bit more, so they don't become so sort of London centric, and that might save some money. But again, I have no problem with cutting out waste. We just have to make sure that it is actual waste and not do what Doge did in the US by, you know, firing nuclear scientists and then having to hire them back the next day. So I agree that there's waste, and of course there's waste. All these blooming Quangos, are you kidding me?
Oh God, yeah.
I thought there was supposed to be a bonfire of the Quangos. Do you remember? They were going to get rid.
But again, that's pathological lying. The thing is Starmer says these things. I mean, anyone can say anything.
Yeah, that's true.
Actions speak louder than words at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like what I did when I went to America and I came back. I because I was let down, I did a 3 strikes and you're out rule. Someone lets me down 3 times. I don't care how long I've known you, whatever. I'm not interested.
I'm the same.
Wash your hands with it. So, you know, with Keir Starmer, the amount of things that he says, I just like, yeah, whatever. I'm just tuned out. I have no, and same with Conservatives. I've tuned out because if they had a majority. They had that majority back in 2019, and they took it and did nothing with it. And, you know, at the end of the day, they just took it. They took it as, oh yeah, we'll be fine. We'll do. I think
COVID probably stymied them as well. I don't think there was much that they could have done. But I'm not. I mean, like I said, I'm not political. I'm just sort of. I am political, but I'm not party political. But you know, it is worth remembering the history of the time. But yeah, it's just interesting to me that people will believe Farage where we've always been lied to before. I suppose you have to believe somebody one day, but I don't know, Tristan. I don't trust any of them. Good to talk to you. You take care. I've got to take a very quick break, but I will be back.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, this is Talk and it's Petrie here until the top of the hour, and we're discussing Nigel Farage and reform. And do you believe him? Do you believe in him? And what about his policies, which even he says, I might be exaggerating the amount of money I might be a bit, you know, bit out here. But I just wonder if you are thinking, well, I might as well give him a chance because the others are just so bad. And many of you saying, well, how bad can it get? I don't know. There's been, be very careful what you wish for because you need to know what he thinks about the NHS. You need to know that he thinks it's unsustainable. You need to know that he's thinking of privatising it and he thinks that we should have an insurance system like the US. So there are things that, be very careful. The small print is always important. When you say things can't get any worse, they always can. Ricky in Glasgow says, no, Petrie, you're correct. They're all rubbish. I wouldn't trust any politicians. Boris was used to get Brexit done, and then he was done, wasn't he? Farage and Reform votes will be used to clamp down on the migrant crisis, but they're dangerous on other policies, which are abysmal, to put it mildly. And Ricky, I think maybe you're alluding to that whole thing about the NHS. He's been very vocal about wanting it to become a sort of insurance-based system. And Ricky also asked, are you taking WhatsApp messages? Yes. I'm sorry, I should be saying that, shouldn't I? So you can text 87222 and put the word talk up front, or you can WhatsApp the same phone number that is the call-in number, which is 0344 499 1000, and you can even leave a short voice note on that number as well, which is what Julian did earlier on.
Hi Petrie, it's Julian. I really don't know if Nigel Farage is the answer. I have no idea really whether he would make a good Prime Minister or not. What I do know is that the country's in a mess. It's a mess because of we have 14 years of inept government from the Conservatives. We've had a year of even more inept government from Labour and Keir Starmer. What else have we got left to try? I think no matter how bad Farage is, he couldn't possibly be worse than Labour or the Conservatives. I think he's the only thing we've got left to try.
So that is interesting, Julian. Thank you. And that's pretty much the question that I've been asking. We have forgotten, of course, there are the Lib Dems. Who? I love the Lib Dems' policies. I really do, and maybe it is time that that they did. I mean, if the Lib Dems have got a blooming open goal at the moment, I don't know what they're mucking about at. I mean, literally fannying about. Why aren't they just getting on with it? They've got an open goal. Anyway. But anyway, there you go. Luke has said, hello, before the local elections, I asked my MP if the Conservatives would reverse changes made with regards to farming. I was very specific, and the response I had washed over and did not address what I asked. I therefore voted Reform. And yeah, Nigel's a big fan of the farmers, isn't he? And this is where he's getting it absolutely right. He is finding the voices, the people who feel disenfranchised, those voices, and speaking for them. And he does that so well. Whether you can trust what he says or not, I don't know. But he does do it extremely, extremely well. And let's go to Robert now, who's in Hertfordshire. Hi, Robert.
Hi, Petrie. We can't keep on meeting like this. So.
Oh, I don't know. I think we can.
Yeah, but by the way, I booked the holiday in Mallorca for a week.
Oh, have you? When are you off?
Day for me and you. Yeah, hotel on Honolulu, but you got to make your own way to the airport. Listen, after the last election, about a week after, I joined Reform, and it was only to cheer myself up. But really and truly, I don't trust him. He's not the Messiah. He's a very naughty boy. You know, he's not the Messiah. He's not the answer, and he's not ready for government. I personally don't think that this present government will see their full term, because we were speaking last night how things are happening every day. Every single day, something's happening. And I've just got a feeling that this present government will dissolve itself. Now, the only way he could take over or be a prime minister is by bonding up with another political. And he's not. Look, he's a narcissist. Trump's a narcissist. You know, he would never be able to do it. And it's very easy. It's very easy to make promises. Trump's done it, and I don't trust him. I really don't trust him. If I was going to vote again, I'd vote probably UKIP. But No.
Are they still in existence? I don't think they are they? Aren't reformed the new UKIP, or is there another UKIP? I don't know. But
there are only 5 seats behind Farage, you know.
Yeah, I mean, look, it is really, it's really worrying the state of politics, though, isn't it? Because you know, Nigel Farage is talking about, you know, he wants to make Britain great again. It doesn't quite read as well as Make America Great Again, but he's bought into that whole thing. And Trump, you know, promised he wouldn't touch Medicare, and yet he's just stripped 14 million Americans of the right to use it over the next 10 years.
Good point.
And that's what worries me about when people think things can't get any worse. I suspect a lot of Americans thought that because they were promised that this wouldn't happen, and they were promised SNAP programs wouldn't be challenged, and that Social Security wouldn't be all of those things, and they have been. They've all been cut back in order to give billionaires and millionaires a tax break. So things can always get worse, and I think it's a naivety if we think, oh well, let's just give him a chance because things can't get any worse than they are. And they can. What if he takes the NHS off us?
Yeah, well, the thing is, people now vote because they don't particularly vote for because they really like the party that they're voting for. They're voting because they don't like the party who's in.
Absolutely.
You know,
I've always said it, Robert. We never vote parties in this country. We vote parties out.
Yeah, and I think Labour are not fit to govern. We all know that, and that they are an opposition party, and that's all they can do. However, you know, Nigel Farage, he says all the right things. He's a great. I mean, I call him a snake oil salesman because he's really good at it.
He's really good at it. It's like Trump is good at it, right?
He's got a knack of saying the right things.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's all right saying it, but then you've got a government. They're not big enough. I can't see how they could win an election, even in 4 years' time. We would never be able to get us. You know, you've got a massive majority that you've got to beat. How's he going to do that?
I don't know. I wouldn't put it past him, though. You know, I said earlier, you dismiss Farage at your peril. You know, I mean, the guy's relentless. But
well, I think he's got to get together with the Lib Dems, but I think he's too narcissistic to get together with anybody. I mean, look at Rupert Lowe. You know, I mean that said it as well. I don't think he could get together. You know, I think he's his own worst enemy. I don't trust him. And he did say something that really worried me, and I think we've clashed on this before. He said one of the things he wouldn't rule out bringing Shamina Begum back into the country. Well, that's a big no for me. I mean, that is my vote gone.
Really?
Vote some. Yeah, because you can't bring convicted terrorists back into the country, and he wouldn't. I know we've clashed on this before, and you've got different views, but no. I feel very strongly about it.
No, I don't think we do on this. I don't think she should come back either. But we have allowed. If she hadn't been picked up by the Times newspaper, she'd be back by now.
Yeah,
she became the poster girl.
I've got friends who think she's already back. You know, people don't dismiss that. I mean,
I don't dismiss that either.
Yeah, you just can't. I mean, there's girls looking at heads in a bucket, for God's sake. You know, she's a terrorist symbol. But anyway,
no, I agree. I don't think we've got any place for her. I really don't. I would happily support her not coming back. But
I don't really know what his policies are. I voted for him. Like I said, I voted for him because it was just on the bounce back, really. I voted for him to cheer myself up, and I did. I got a lovely Christmas card from him. I got to invite me and my wife to his Christmas party. I got invited to stand as a local councillor. which I just, no, I haven't got the temperament for that. I'll end up giving someone a clump. I just haven't got, no, I haven't got.
I'd just be sat there with brown envelopes stuffed with cash around me. I'd just be so corrupt that it would be, I'd do well out of that, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, listen, Robert, I'm with you. It's desperate, the state of the country. It really is desperate. But I think that more and more people are turning to reform, and they do believe in Nigel Farage. It's great to talk to you. It always is, Robert. I love you. Right, quick break. Back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, and it's Petrie here with you for the next 10 minutes or so. And we're talking about Nigel Farage, and I'm just fascinated, really, as to what it is about Nigel Farage that you trust more than you trust other politicians. Or is it just a case of the others have let us down so badly, which they have, that, you know, we might as well give him a go. What could go so wrong? And like I said, in these times, things can always get worse. They do get worse. They can get worse. But I'm just really interested as to why it is that you trust him more than you've trusted other politicians perhaps in the past. And he is good at talking, we know that, but we saw that with Boris Johnson. Like I said before, he managed to smash that red wall. It's gone back up, but he smashed it because people believed him. They thought, this guy's different. He's going to be different. He's going to deliver for us. A Tory, he's going to be the different Tory. He's going to help out the working man and woman. He's going to deliver for us. And of course, he never did. So, but people trusted him enough that they lent him their vote, and they let him down. He let them down. Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. We haven't got long left on the programme, but I want to read out some messages. I've got loads of messages. This one from Ernie says, we've got to believe Farage, we've got to trust him and reform because we've got nothing else. If reform doesn't come good, this country is finished. Labour is just spending money we don't have. Someone who's been given their first credit card. The Conservatives are a busted flush who let us down big time, and the Greens and the Liberals are living in cloud cuckoo land. Reform is our only hope, or it's over, all over for this once great country of ours, says Ernie. I just don't want you to be disappointed by another liar. Martin said, Farage is talking the talk. There is no one left to vote for. Both major parties have been absolutely appalling. It is very true. Also, easy way to empty the hotels. Third countries, ship them all out. I'll wait to hear you squirm and call me a racist. I'm not going to call you that. Why would I call you that? It's what the majority want. The thing is, we want change. We want our country back. If you think anything else, you're talking to the wrong people. Right. The only reason I'm going to come back at you on this is because you say easy way, empty the hotels, third countries. We can't find a third country that will take them. Can we? Possibly Kosovo. Possibly. But nobody else wants to take them. So then what? You can't just impose them on a third country. They have to agree to it, and we have to pay them a lot of money. So it's all very well saying it's really easy. Empty the hotels, ship them off to a third country. It's not. You make it sound like it's done. It isn't. You imagine a third country wants to take all of the asylum seekers we've got in this country right now. They're going to put their hand out and go, yeah, we'll have them. It's not going to happen. And certainly not without a massive paycheck. I mean, you look at what it's costing for the hotels, millions of pounds a day. Imagine what it's going to cost us to send these people to a third country. It's not going to be free of charge. That's not money that Nigel Farage will have in his back pocket to dish out on favours for people. That's money he's going to have to spend on sending these people to different countries. I think sometimes you just see what you want and think that third country, easy peasy. I think both these governments have been trying to do that for quite some time on the quiet, and they've never found one yet. So Albania went, get lost. Didn't they? When I nearly said Trump, but Keir Starmer went there and went, we're going to a third country. And they went, no, you're not. Get lost. All the other countries have said no as well. So it's not easy. And I think that's something that Farage, once in power, will begin to realise, that these things are not just say them and they're done. Trump thought the same about finishing the war in Gaza and Israel and the war in Ukraine, Russia. I'll have that done in half an hour. Never as simple as you think. Never. Louisa says, regarding the big question, Nigel Farage and the Reform Party, I'm at the point where I will never vote again. I don't trust any of the leaders or members of any of the political parties. I despair. They're all willing to throw ill and disabled people under the bus, amongst other issues. Everyone seems to be talking about cuts made to different groups, but the disabled are being ignored. Disparaging comments and rhetoric, human beings, no regard for their lives because of nonsense stories and bad press. Louisa, I agree with all of this. Yes, and there are those that scam and exploit the benefit system, but what about the genuinely ill and disabled people? Just numbers, who cares? Well, I will always care. You'll always have a voice with me, Louisa, and I completely agree with you. It's because the most vulnerable people in society, the easiest ones to silence, aren't they? Because you can't collectively get together and speak. It's disgusting. Anyway, Cindy is in Michigan. Hello, Cindy. How are you?
Hi, Petrie. Hey, I want to say I'd like to begin by saying we should never trust 100% any politician. That goes without saying, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they've all proved that they're in it for themselves. Most of them, anyway.
I'd like to say they probably most often than not all are. But I do have a sense with Farage that he right now has a lot to prove. So he's got a lot more to lose if he doesn't follow through with his promises. And I tend to believe him. He reminds me a lot of Donald Trump. And I think he has some things on the table that might not be popular, but I think he's got the people in his heart. His best interest, it's going to be the people.
Do you really think so? I mean, I
do.
I don't. I think that the person in Nigel Farage's heart is Nigel Farage. I think that he's got something to prove. He's ego. And I as a posh boy millionaire, I don't think he understands the British people as well as he says he does.
He is. I also think that, people right now are so fed up that if they even get a little taste of him swaying back on his word, he's going to get ousted, like from once he came.
Yeah, you can do a lot of damage in 5 years, though, Cindy. That's the thing. That's how long our Parliament is. Each session is 5 years, and even if we could, we have more mechanisms than you guys do to get rid of a leader that we don't like. But still, it would be a reform government for the lion's share of that 5 years, and a lot of damage can be done in that time. A lot of things can be undone.
Why is Keir still in? I mean,
because there hasn't been the will to.
I'm not a fan.
No, you're not alone in that. But because his party haven't called, there's been no vote of distrust in him, so he's there, right? He's there until the party vote against him, and then they can have another election. But they're standing behind him so far. I don't think he'll last the 5 years, Keir Starmer. I don't think he'll be leader.
Anybody would be better than him, but I do like Farage. I feel that he is this far. He stood by his word. He's a fighter for the people. He wants good. I genuinely believe that wholeheartedly.
But you voted for Trump, didn't you?
I did.
And do you still believe in him?
Yes, and you know what? I'm 53, and I was a Democrat my whole entire life. Never voted against a Democrat until this year.
That's really interesting. And you
I'd
still believe in Trump?
I do. I don't agree with everything.